And welcome to another edition of the Batchelor News Radio show on the Batchelor News Radio Network. That'd be IBM TV, where you can watch it on Roku. Big Mind Entertainment, where you can watch it on your Fire Stick, your Amazon Fire Stick, if you have one. Also, we're live on YouTube at LA Batchelor. You can watch it, of course, at Pad Nation on Facebook, Pad Nation 2, at Twitter, Instagram. We're all over the place. So we just thank you for joining us. You could have been doing anything else, and you decided to be a part of this broadcast. Want to bring in my guest. Good to have him on, Debonair, and one of the best all-around guys, let alone the best chiefs around, the chief of police in Little Rock, Arkansas. He is Keith Humphrey. And Chief, man, it can't be this long. We got to get you in there, man. You got to be up here.
Hey, brother, I appreciate you, man. Good to see you, man. Hey, listen, man, I'm going to tell you one thing, though, LA, man. You got to take that Steelers hat down, man. Who'd y'all give, Mitch Trubisky?
Yeah, man. Yeah.
I think y'all would go for Deshaun, man.
You know Pittsburgh. Any controversy, they don't want any part of it. I wanted Jameis Winston, actually, but he's still hurt, and they went with Mitch Trubisky. Hey, and I like that kid Malik Willis out of Liberty, too. If they draft him, he might be the future. You better be worried about Amari gone and Cedric Wilson gone now, and
we got CD. We got CD and Gallup, man. I mean, those are good guys. I mean, CD can be that number one receiver. They just gave Gallup $62 million, so hey, we're gonna be all right, bro.
We'll see. My brother's a big time Dallas fan. I just saw him with all his Dallas Shrine. I said, you better burn that stuff, man. Come on, really. Hey, Chief, I wanted to get you on to talk about this new administration, and certainly the Biden administration has made some promises. Now we know how agencies work. It's different in different cities and different states, but this administration has made some promises and tried to pass some bills as it relates to some negative things that happened with police, and the George Floyd bill is still not passed. Civil rights and things of that nature is still on the table. And you still look at some of the incidents that's taking place, across the country. But what's your thoughts about Biden and his administration thus far in trying to make policing not only more accountable, but better as it relates to civilians?
I think they're trying, LA. I mean, it's 2 years, a year and a half into his administration. I will tell you that I've seen more money coming in for grants for community programs, social workers, training that I've seen since Obama was in office, since President Obama was in office. I think his biggest problem is, man, he's just getting so much pushback from the states, the governors, the conservatives. He's just getting so much pushback everything he tries to do. But I will tell you.
Sorry about that.
I will tell you. That's okay. But I will tell you that I think it's promising. Just what I've seen from the feds under this administration, as far as working with local police departments, trying to fight the violent crime, going after those that January 6th, insurrection.
Right.
I've seen that, and making sure that there's the funds out there for the training. Now, you said something really interesting. The money can be there for the training, but if you have police chiefs and sheriffs that don't believe you should take that money or don't believe in that training, that's the problem. But the money's there. And if there's no reason for people not to get the training, the de-escalation training, and the training to improve relationships between people of color, because the funding is there and the training is available.
One of the things that's I read about, and New York is, the metropolitan and the biggest of the big in terms of what they have to deal with, and in the agencies. There's a bill that is being looked at that's been passed sort of quietly in New York State Assembly, that makes it easier for police departments to withhold crucial public records yet again. This is coming from the New York Post. If signed by the governor, who asked lawmakers to make the change, the bill would allow police departments to circumvent the repeal of state secretary law known as 50A. It's a broad written legislation. It doesn't go as far, but it also blocks the disclosure of police misconduct records. And I've seen this and read something similar in other states. Talk about that, Chief, because to me, that is going to, if you as a Chief Humphrey wants to bridge that gap to show, yes, we are there's some really good officers out here in law enforcement and agencies, and the community can see that community policing getting them involved. And now you have bills like this. What is that going to do to efforts like yours?
What do you have to hide? I mean, at the end of the day, LA, when you are an officer and you have violated the policy, you shouldn't be hidden. People need to know. The community needs to know who they're dealing with. The community is more forgiving when you're transparent and you're honest. But it goes back to these type of laws. It goes back to like the FOP, Fraternal Order of Police, when they basically they have a lot of power. And a lot of this stuff, when you hear of these governors and you hear of these senators frowning on these bills, that's because the FOP have strong lobbyists. And the FOP, a lot of the FOP gives money to these politicians for their election, for their campaigns. And so I guarantee you there's an FOP component in that, because in New York, man, they've got strong unions in New York, up north, strong unions. And I guarantee you there's an FOP component behind this, that, we want to hide what's going on.
But why? Let me ask you, Chief. But why? Why does the FOP? It might be a stupid question, but why do they work against guys like you? Why do they want to make it hard for you to do your job?
Because, simply put, man, they don't want to follow the rules. They want to be able to. So, and that's not all the associations or the bargaining units. But I will tell you that chiefs, especially chiefs of color, have a hard time working with the FOP, because they give us so much problem. No matter what we do, they're going to try to turn their members against that chief, and they try to make it personal. So, for instance, if you have someone that's untruthful and you terminate someone for untruthfulness, they're going to try to make it seem as though it's a racial thing. Especially if that person is white, it's a racial thing. It doesn't matter that this person lied. They're going to justify. They're going to try to justify it and say, well, the chief has got a problem with you. That's why they fired you. Well, they'll send it to arbitration, and they have these attorneys that defend that, and they try to make you look like the bad guy. They try to make it seem like, so everything they do has a purpose of trying to humiliate and trying to circumvent the system to where people don't have to live by rules. They say they want you to live by rules, but I'm telling you, and especially if it's somebody that they really like, as somebody who's strong in the FOP, they will die for that person, die on that sword to prove their point. But I guarantee you that's an FOP component. DeSantis in Florida, big supporter of the FOP. A lot of these governors, a lot of these senators, if they're conservative, they're members of the FOP, because the FOP endorse Trump. They endorse a lot of these individuals that they are heavy-handed, and they believe in heavy-handed policing. So they endorse these individuals.
Why wouldn't, if you're just joining us, we're talking with Chief Keith Humphrey, Chief of Police at Little Rock, Arkansas, on the Batchelor News radio show. Why would any agency not want to give their officers proper training? Again, maybe a stupid question, but why not invest in that? That should be one of the biggest investments to improve what's going on between relations between officers
Well,
and
LA,
civilians.
I'll tell you why. Because a lot of that training they want us to be firearms training. They want it to be defensive tactics training, firearms training. They feel as though it's soft policing when you're talking about de-escalation. People will take advantage of you. You lose control of a situation or control of the community when you're talking about de-escalation and things like that. So they'll take the money, but they want to put the money toward more firearms training, more defensive tactics, more of the strong arm policing. And so, there are those New York's going to take all the money they can for training. The larger cities know they need to. Chicago, New York, LA, Dallas, Houston, cities like Little Rock. We take those funds in order to grant funding for the body worn cameras. That's one of the things that we took. The grant money for social workers, grant money for de-escalation, asset forfeiture money. Those are the type of funds that you use for those resources that make your police department better, and especially make your police department more conducive to what the community believes a police department needs to be. But you just have some, man, that just don't believe in it. LA, if I can, just for a minute. So I was just in a training in Virginia, and that we got to talking about the Second Amendment, and we got to talking about what is the love for guns, especially in law enforcement. And I'm not talking about your duty weapon, and people have off-duty weapons, and you might have 2 or 3 weapons. But what is the love for weapons, especially fully automatic weapons, and large capacity weapons that carry large capacity magazines? And one guy said, because they're fun to shoot. And I'm like, these are the same weapons. These are the same weapons, LA, that are killing people in the nation, killing police officers. But you have law enforcement officers saying, because they're fun to shoot and we have a right to own them. Not the fact is just crazy. It's I don't fathom the love for that type of firepower. There are officers out here that got owned 200 and 300 guns.
Wow.
And when you say, man, why, they get upset because I have a right to Second Amendment. But I just wanted to share that. I mean, that's some of the mindset we have out here. And when you have that mindset of heavy-handed, reactive policing, that's a problem. Heavy-handed, reactive policing, that's a problem instead of proactive policing. We know, the communities know we have to be reactive. They know that. They understand we have to arrest people, we have to write tickets. They get that. We have to go calls for service. They get that. But you can't be completely 100% reactive. That gets you nowhere.
And I would think too, Chief, that again, the proactive part, doing the stuff behind the scenes, I would think, I mean, you know better, you're the expert, may make it less reactive and put your officers in danger, because you have to go into it. You don't know what you're getting into. You're going into it. So maybe if you're proactive, then you're not as reactive, and you can de-escalate, which is another thing to bring up. You could talk about that. And then also, if you can also talk about, I've noticed, and some of my colleagues were reading up on some of these, the gap between, or the disconnect between, chief of police like you who want to do the right thing, bad officer gotta go, and the DA office who says, no, we no bill it. He shot him, no bill, no bill, no bill. Talk about that as well.
Yeah, let me talk about that real quick. So when you look at these laws under, because so what the district attorneys look at is, was this officer within these guidelines when he utilized force? And so no matter how we may disagree with that, the DA, this is the guidelines they go by. And then let's just face it, some DAs, man, they don't want the drama. They don't want the drama. But what I will tell you, I can name 5 district attorneys right now that they don't have a problem with taking the heat from the police departments and the unions. David Prater out of Oklahoma City, man, he's prosecuted. In the 10 years I was there, I know for a fact David Prater prosecuted about 7 officers, sent about 7 officers to the penitentiary. He doesn't have a problem. You break the law, he doesn't cut corners. He has no problem. He follows the law. You're starting to see a lot of the cities, a lot of the district attorneys, they're looking at the whole statute. Were you reckless? Were you reckless? Because it says knowingly and intentionally. Well, you might not be intentionally trying to, but were you reckless in your act? Were you reckless in the act when you shot at this individual or took this person's lives? And so a lot of them are looking at that part, or even if they can't go with a homicide, they're looking at a more of a lower, a lower standard of the statute. But what I will tell you, man, is that there's a lot of pressure on these prosecutors now. The deal in Kentucky, the state attorney in Kentucky, in the Breonna Taylor deal, man, he dropped the ball on that. That was borderline criminal, and to this day he'll never be able to overcome that. I mean, those are the kind of things that make our jobs difficult. And those are the kind of things that, I was just talking to a good friend of mine, man, when you take on these jobs, LA, as far as a chief of police, a district attorney, you don't take those jobs for people to like you. You take those jobs, you take an oath to uphold the law and do the right thing. And there are just some people that just can't do the right thing. They want everybody to like them. They worry about what the union's going to say, what the community is going to say. But at the end of the day, man, if you're wrong, you're wrong. And you can't justify somebody being wrong. And that's what we're doing. That's what's going on in the law enforcement profession. We've done it for so long. We've gotten away with stuff. It's been to the point all you got to say is, I fear for my safety. Well, we're beyond that now. You better be able to articulate why you did it. Did you have why you did it and why you did it that way? And so we can't play that game anymore.
It's a saying in radio. I've been a promotions director at radio stations, and that typically they're the person in charge of contests and concerts and giveaways. And when things go wrong, they point the finger at the promotions director and the radio station. And I'm loosely connecting the fact that if these DAs, like in the Kentucky situation, continue to do what they're doing and no billing these officers and law enforcement that's doing the wrong thing, I think you're the face of it. Now the community saying them officers getting away with it, and it's the DA that's really making that decision based on, like you said, looking at what the rules are and the laws in place, and then making that decision. And I even think, Chief, you don't have to, but I even think it's even worse for black officers and black chief of police, because we already have, I told you growing up, some of the worst officers we dealt with in our hood were black. So now you trying to say, hey, I know, I feel your pain. I'm still black. Chief Humphrey's still black, so I feel your pain. I know what's going on. I know what time it is, but now they're going, no, you're not one of us, because you let that happen. You in bed with the DA, and all that kind of stuff seems to go on with the good ones like yourself, Chief.
I know right now 5 African-American chiefs that are catching hell because they're doing the right thing. My peer in Arlington, Texas, man, I mean, there's a video where this officer shot a guy, shot at a moving car. He got in the way of this vehicle and shot into the car and killed this guy. The chief within 2 days had fired him. And man, the union went after him, voted no confidence. And it's right there on video. And this is what they said. You rush to the conclusion, and you fired this guy without due process. It's right there on the video, man. It was plain as day, LA. and so everybody understands why the chief did it, but the union wants to do a vote of no confidence on it.
Right.
And so it's, for wanting to do the right thing, and it's just crazy, the things that go on in this profession. But what I will tell you, I'm very optimistic that about this presidential administration, just the things that we're seeing as far as the new attorney general, because they wanted to do away with consent decrees. Under the last administration, they wanted to do away with consent decrees. They did not believe.
Can you explain what a consent decree is?
Yeah, so a consent decree is basically when the feds come in and they take over your organization based on your police department, based on the history that you that you've displayed. So, right. Case in point, New Orleans for years was under a consent decree based on the history of New Orleans with corruption and things like that. So they come in, they appoint a monitor that's in your police department, and they have these guidelines. It's a civil process, and they have these guidelines that you have to follow. And before you can be released off the consent decree, you have to accomplish each and every one of it. And it's very expensive to go through that process, because if they say you need to send all your officers through this kind of training, you got to do it. This consent decree is basically telling you it's a contract that you have to follow. And so basically they wanted to get rid of that. That's one of the ways to police the police. And they wanted to do away with that. They wanted to do away with, they don't believe, the past administration didn't believe in review boards. One of the things that I will say about the current administration, they believe in consent decrees. They believe police should be policed, and they believe that the community should be involved with policing, like review boards. So I'm very optimistic of what I've seen as far as the fact that they're holding law enforcement accountable. This attorney general has done that. The FBI director, Christopher Wray, has also said they have no problem filing federal charges against officers. And if you notice, Chauvin and the other three, they've gone after them federally because federal guidelines have more teeth as far as the time that you serve. And so you're starting to see more of this, holding these officers accountable, not just on state charges, but also federal charges.
We're joined by Chief Keith Humphrey of Little Rock, Arkansas, one of my longtime friends, and I call him a friend, and of course one of the best chiefs around. Chief, two things I want to focus in on before you get out of here, and I appreciate your time. Number one, you'd mentioned January 6th and the chaos that took place after that. Still people, as you said, the FBI director still looking at some people, not just in Chauvin, but certainly in that case, still people mowing their lawn, free as a bird, that were out there causing chaos because they wanted to take back their country, right? So what's been sort of the aftermath in your agency, in particular, and some of your colleagues that you know, as it relates to that hate that went on at January 6th? Has it changed a little bit? Have you noticed any kind of difference, or is you still seeing that type of hate in your agency and others?
No, I think it's still, I think you have a small percentage that have that, but for the most part, there was a very broad spectrum of response of, this is embarrassing, this is just wrong. No matter what you feel about that president, no matter what you feel about your local representatives, man, you don't act like that. You don't do that, and especially you don't turn on your brothers in blue. And that was one of the things that we talked about in our staff meetings and throughout the department. I did not hear one person try to justify what they saw, and that was comforting to me. Now, what people say behind the scenes, totally different. Now, I will tell you, one of my best friends in Norman, he's had a different reaction from his troops. They basically didn't think anything was wrong with it. They felt as though it was those individuals' rights to do so. As a matter of fact, to the point, LA, when he put out an email basically talking about how embarrassing that was, and it's a disgrace to be a police officer and watch that happen. Some of the white officers there filed complaints against him, saying that he was taking away their rights to think the way to taking away their First Amendment rights. So he's caught some flack for it. But I'll tell you one thing about it: they got the wrong one, because he's the guy that stands up and basically, says, "Hey, I'm telling you you're wrong, and if I find out any of you all were there and participated in that, I'm going to take you to the federal prosecutor myself." So I haven't, I don't know of, I haven't heard of anybody in my department that has been in support of what happened.
And you haven't had, to be clear, you haven't had to terminate any officer because of
I have not. I have not had to terminate any officer. And like I said, nobody has said they support it. And I don't know what they're doing behind the scenes, but I haven't had anybody openly support it. And that was a good thing, for our department.
Very good. The other part of it is COVID. Mm-hmm. Now, when you and your colleague was on the air talking about this, I mean, it was absolute chaos, more than January 6th, in the sense that you had to worry about your officers getting sick, you getting sick, and then dealing with sick people, and all of the mess, to wearing masks, probably responding to people who defy the mandate, and all of these different things. What's been going on in the aftermath, even though we know there's still a strand out there, and not every state is loosening everything, and some are. But what's been sort of the aftermath from all the chaos that we had, say, even a year ago?
Well, the aftermath has been better planning, have better contingency plans. I think people see it. I know some of the officers thought that they were immune from it. They didn't agree with the mask mandate. Those are some of the same officers that they contracted the virus, and their families contracted it. In the last 6 months to a year, we didn't have any problems with the officers wearing masks. We probably had some of the lower cases in our state. For a department our size, we didn't have the number of people that contracted COVID that you would think. I had 750 employees, and we didn't have the number. That's because we were very strict. We went through having meetings through WebEx and Zoom. Everybody stepped up. And so really and truly, it was more, we got better contingencies now. We know what to expect. We know how to plan and things like that. So that's what it has done. But what it has also done, LA, it has actually caused an uptick in violent crime, because a lot of the individuals that were not out are now, it's caused backlogs in the court system. We have a lot of people that are being released out on bond. We have a lot of people who have had feuds via social media, and then when they get out, they carry out those threats. And so that's what we're seeing now, the uptick in violent crime related to the restrictions that COVID had put on, a year and a half, 2 years ago. Now everybody's coming out, and a lot of stuff is just, is being uncovered. That's the biggest thing. It has contributed to our violent crime rates in the nation. Yeah, everybody's angry. Everybody's angry, LA. I've never seen anything like this in my 30-some years of law enforcement. I've never seen such a hostile environment throughout this nation when it comes to, just people just attacking each other, shooting each other. Everybody's got a gun. People are leaving guns in cars. Cars are being broken into. And I see this question, did anyone wearing a mask? No, we didn't see an increase of the mask as far as contributing to people committing violent crimes. And I'm thinking like robberies and things like that. That hasn't been the problem at all. Okay. It's just more of the people now coming out, being out in public more. and things. We saw more domestics because people were at home. We saw more kids getting involved in crimes because they weren't in school and they were at home and they were wandering and things like that. So those are the things that we've seen, but not because we didn't see an uptick in crime because people were wearing the mask. Not at all.
Yeah, and it's funny. Another question is about to pop up. You mentioned you didn't terminate anyone because of January 6th. Did you have to get rid of anyone who didn't want to follow the mask mandate? Your officers. Okay.
No, we didn't. You had a few that complained about it, but not really. I mean, we made it very clear. And the main thing is how you look at that, LA, is when you continue to tell them you don't want to take this home to your family. But we didn't have any. We didn't have to discipline anybody about masks.
Not a lot of guys getting sick or anything either. Or
like I said, we probably had about 50 cases of COVID in our entire department over the 2-year period. And so, 50 is too many, but I mean, 1 is too many, but I mean, compared to what other departments had, no, because we followed the mandate and the mayor he got on top of it really quickly and put those emergency orders in about masks, and we made it clear that we need these guys to wear masks and stuff like that, especially in the offices, our detectives and things like that. So yeah, we didn't have to discipline anybody, not one person regarding masks.
Now, this is a good question because you were talking about being prepared in the future. And so David is asking, did you work close with the CDC, of course, the Center for Disease Control?
Yeah, our emergency management. So the city has an emergency management, and then we have an emergency management inside the department who work extremely close with state health department and CDC. So that information continued to be pumped through the department and through the city. And so that helped us a lot. And we continue to we were one of the first departments in the state that got the initial vaccination, and then, the boost, the 2 initial vaccination, and then the boosters. We did them at each of the stations. So we made it convenient for the officers and even retired officers to come and get their shots. And we followed strict CDC guidelines, masks, as far as cleaning the vehicles, spraying down our facilities and things like that. When one person got sick, we come right back and sterilize our facility and stuff like that. So we were really on top of it.
Final question for you, Chief. And again, we started this conversation about state of policing under this administration, even looking at the agency city by city type thing. What can you say to young men and women, in particular of color, that are wanting to get into your profession and are excited about it? I know that my nephew, and you're trying to take a look at that. So with guys like him and others, what do you say to them when they're coming in? Because there's some optimism. I like your optimism, but there's some criticism out there, and they're coming into a lot of this climate of, don't trust the police in certain cases, certain situations, and these hate crimes and these police shootings don't help what you're trying to do. So what do you say to the youngins coming in?
Basically, don't get in for the right reason to make a change, one day at a time. Realize that you can make a difference. Realize that if you want to make a change, you have to be part of the solution, and that this is a noble profession, and that it's a privilege to be in this profession. And when you're selected, you should be honored, because everybody can't do this job. A lot of people knock on the door, but very few people are let in. And you have to take advantage of that. And one of the things I will say really quickly, LA, right up off the bat, I remind our recruits that we have a lot of authority in this position. And I say, we have the authority to arrest someone. So take their freedom. You have authority to go in someone's house and search. And God forbid you have the authority to take someone's life. I said, so that's a lot of authority, and we can't abuse that. And so if you feel that you can't handle that authority or that type of authority, then you're in the wrong profession. And so we can make a difference. We just got to continue to pound and let people know what we're here for. And the main thing is listen to people, respect people no matter what their socioeconomic status is, their ethnicity, their gender, sexual orientation. You've got to respect people. If you want people to respect you and believe in you, you've got to respect them. Everybody's not going to like what you do. There's just some people that just don't like the police, but that's okay. You continue to be professional and you can make a difference.
You know, Chief, I always told you, even when we first met, how much I respect you, man. And it's a tough position, especially at the leadership. You're going to get some of them Europeans that gonna say, "Oh, I ain't respecting that black face and that black man." But you demand respect. You give respect. You have to treat men and women, like grown men and women, and that's what you do. And so I just appreciate you. We got to have you on even more because there's a lot going on. I want to talk about, accentuate some of the positives even more. And as I always tell you, man, love you, man. You keep your head down and your head up. And your family, and you be careful.
Hey, bro, and anytime, man, just let me know, man. I got you.
All right, I appreciate you.
And I got your nephew too.
All right, thanks, Chief. I appreciate you, man. All right, always good to have Chief Humphrey on. Of course, he is the Chief of Police in Little Rock, Arkansas, on the Batchelor News Radio Show.
You're always on my mind. You're always on my mind. You got me always thinking of you. You always.
And welcome to another edition of the Batchelor News Radio Show on the Batchelor News Radio Network on Big Mind Entertainment. If you have Fire Stick, you can download the Big Mind Entertainment app and you can watch the show there. You can watch the show now on YouTube at LA Batchelor, of course, at IBM TV. Follow us on Facebook at Pad Nation, Pad Nation 2 at Twitter. And if you want the broadcast, if you want the other broadcast, the audio rebroadcast, you can go to our website, thebatchelornews.airtime.pro. I want to bring my first guest. He is a columnist. He is a entrepreneur and educator, and he is the host of his own show, The Resistance Hours, with Dr. Larry Fedewa. It airs every Wednesday, 7 p.m. Eastern Time on this network, on the Batchelor News Radio Network. He is Dr. Larry Fedewa. And Doc, thank you for coming on. I appreciate you giving us your time today.
Sorry about the confusion on the time, but here I am.
Oh, it happens. Listen, I'm just getting back in town and trying to get back and acclimated and everything. So I definitely understand it. I appreciate that, sir. And thank you for you and Teresa with your prayers and your kind words. I really appreciate that too as well. So we talked a couple weeks ago about conscious capitalism and how it works, and so many businesses that are in this
Movement
way of thinking, right, where they're saying, okay, we want to share some of this revenue with our workers. We want to keep them happy. We want their families to prosper. And if they're happy at home, if they're happy in their pockets, then they're gonna work better. But I wanted to get into some gender and some ethnic groups, if you will, and see if it's a different dynamic. I want to start, obviously, African Americans certainly have made strides in this country, as you know, but certainly we're not where we need to be in terms of hourly wage, in terms of even moving up the ladder in certain businesses and organizations. So how do you get businesses to understand that if you share the revenue, you make your workers happy, but at the same time trying to make everybody level? In other words, the white worker may be, let's say, making $19 an hour, $20 an hour, whereas his black counterpart might be making 15 or 14. How do you bring them at the same level at the same time trying to share that revenue and have that construct that works for the business?
I think a good model for this is athletics, particularly football. I'm thinking of football and basketball, especially football. Football used to be completely white. Oh, well, baseball was the same way. And once they got black and Latino players, when those guys started hitting home runs and winning games and proving that they were really very valuable to the team, the whole issue of race got more or less incidental. And I think that's a good model for the way it works in business too. When the individual starts making good decisions and bringing in whatever kind of business that they're in, and proving that they're good, then the whole. I mean, I know that in my own experience. I mean, I don't even think half of my the professional class I have the most to do with lately seems to be medicine, unfortunately, and half of my, more than half, all of my physicians are either minorities or recent immigrants or black. Um, it just you don't even think of it. It gets to be it's like black people looking at white people. They if they prove themselves to be intelligent and helpful and trying to be on the same side, the black guys don't look at the white guys as being too different either. Yeah, I think the whole issue is, if we want to win a game, we gotta use all the best talent we can.
Well, and two, Doc. I mean, how do you, if the goal is to, obviously you're in business to make money, but at the same time you want to make better lives for yourself and your workers. How do you even get that productivity if you not exclude a certain group, but you don't take care of a certain group? You want the best of the best, is what you're saying. So if so bringing minorities in and paying them at the same level not only ensures that they're going to be happy and they feel equal, there's that word, but it's also going to be a sense of a balance, right? Like it's companies, just like we say in sports a lot, should be microcosms of America. So if you got a percentage of minorities in this company, it should reflect what is going on in society.
Yeah, I'm not for the quota approach to it. I think you go out and look for the best candidate, and you hire them, and if you need coaching, you coach them and whatever. But I don't see the quotas are not very productive. I don't think, because
But let me just
that
say
means you're
this.
going to take people that can't do the job as
Right,
well.
but see what's going on. If you've been following the NFL, is this debate about the lack of, and just follow what I'm saying, the lack
Yeah.
of black coaches and GMs and stuff. And
Yeah.
the same thing you said is what opponents of quotas, where they say, well, pick the best person. So you can't tell me, as a black man, seeing all those 75% of the people playing in the NFL that look like me, you can't tell me that they're not qualified people that can do the job. So if people, when people hear, well, you just go for the best.
I agree with you.
Right.
with you.
So if you're saying you just want the best person, sometimes if it's sort of a good old boy network, those best persons may not look like me for deliberate reasons, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, and that exists. It exists, I think, in just about any tribe. Whether it's black or Latino or white or Eastern European or whatever. People tend to go to people that are like themselves, and that's really the big challenge of America. We've got in America, we've done something that nobody else has ever done in the history of the world, and that is that we have decided that we have a new tribe that's above all of us, and we all have to belong to it if we want to. I mean, what does the Constitution say? Every buddy is entitled by their creator to the to the life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That's our goal, and we've just got to keep trying to do it. And these guys in the NFL, I agree with you. I think that there is some bias there, and I think it's showing, and it shouldn't be. But you guys, we're Americans, right? So we can protest that.
Right.
We can talk about it. We can make those guys feel bad. We can come out and accuse them of being biased and challenge them to show us that they're not. And that where else can you do that? You know, many countries and cultures in the history of the world, you would get that. You get your try doing that in China. You
Right.
know, you get your head taken off.
Or you go
So
you disappear somewhere. Yeah,
you
you're right.
yeah, that's right. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm talking with Dr. Larry Fita here on on the Batchelor News Radio Show. Doc, the other group I wanted to talk about is women, whether women of color and or just women in general. Again, you look at the women's movement going back to the 70s, they still are making far less, like a third of a dollar, or maybe a little bit more now, but certainly it's not right. So
Yeah, but
I think the challenge,
look at your sample.
right,
You know, your sample is includes a whole legion of people who take off the mommy years. You know, and they're out of the workforce for 10 to 20 years, and then they come back, as opposed to people that have been in there the whole 10 to 20 years,
right.
and therefore, sure, it's going to be less on average, because many of them haven't been earning a wage for a long time. So that I think that's a very moot argument.
Right. And I think though, you know, the challenge though is how do you again get them up to speed, and then how do you balance again, I'm thinking in terms of capitalism, but I'm also thinking in terms of like you saying you're taking this worker and moving up. Case in point, I one of my many zillion jobs. I worked at TCBY, the yogurt chain. For when I started in my hometown, they had a couple there. I started off part time, and within 6 months, I was a shift supervisor, and then 6 months later, I was a manager, and then after that, I ran both stores. So, how do we get the levels in terms of pay rates, pay raises, and also take those steps, and how do you balance women and minorities at the same time? I mean, what women are minorities in a sense, but minorities in terms of say Hispanics or blacks or whoever, Chinese or whatever, as a at the same time raising the level of women.
Just be successful. You know, if you have a company that is very profitable, they're all gonna be well treated. If you have a company that is not successful, then nobody's going to get really wealthy. I lost you.
No, you're right. You're right. I was just thinking of what you said. Why does it seem that some people aren't on board with this? It's almost like it's this ideology that people, especially the owners, don't have this value system. Like they want to keep, like it's a big deal to go from a profit of 10%, and then you go, well, if you take 2% of those earnings away, and you're down to 8%, like that's going to be some kind of killing, especially with 401ks not doing what they're supposed to do, with people putting all their trust in those things not working. We know about banks, like who banks, like a lot now, really. So why are some groups, some businesses still not getting on board with conscious capitalism?
Well, because there's a long history of capitalism as being, as Milton Friedman said, the purpose of a business is to enrich the shareholders, and that's kind of been the traditional ethic of capitalism, and conscious capitalism is one of several movements that say, no, that's not right. That is not the purpose of business. The purpose of business is to contribute to the welfare of the human race, and if you do that right, you will be rewarded. And that's a whole different approach than the old traditional capitalist ethic. It's a new ethic. It's a different ethic, and frankly, I think it's long overdue. And I think that if we don't do it, there's a lot of very serious consequences that are going to occur. In fact, that they're already on the way. So, nobody likes to change. Change is a hard thing for any human being. And these guys that have made a lot of money, or even if they haven't, if they want to make a lot of money, and they grew up with the old ethic, it's hard to change them. So that's why so many of the people in this new movement are young. They're younger. They're people in your age, and not in my age.
Well, if I'm young, then wow, I'm thinking younger. I mean, and really, Doc, I mean, really though, you hit the nail on it when you say young people. A lot of time when activism happens, it typically comes from the young people. They said enough is enough, and that's where it is. Two quick points for you. I want to read a definition that someone sent to me about conscious capitalism. Then I want to ask you about unions. He said conscious capitalism seeks to replace the old ideology of shareholder value maximization that cements a slavish adherence to the judgment of the market, even when other social signals are more powerful. He went on to say it challenges executives enriched by stock options. You talked about that. Empowers companies fearful of, quote, he put, activist investors who attack whenever stock prices fail to meet quarterly expectations, end quote. And he says, and curtails often frivolous shareholder lawsuits pushing for stock gains at all costs. Your thoughts?
He's right. He's right. I mean, that is the tug of war that's going on in the business community in the United States of America. And it does tend to be generational, as we just talked about before, but it's not altogether generational. There are a lot of very distinguished and very successful businessmen that also. I mean, the younger guys that started this thing have aged.
Right.
They started 15, 20 years ago, and now. And they were maybe in their early 30s, and now they're in their 50s and go on 60s. So gradually they are coming of age, and as they do, this whole movement gets more and more momentum. But it's and the point about unions is also well taken. Unions are not very popular with conscious capitalists. I think that's a mistake, or it could be a mistake. But
unions are the reason. Unions are part of the reason why pay raise and rates have gone down. Correct? Like or kind of stymied and didn't really grow according to GDP and everything else in the growth of the country.
Yeah, as far as my theory is that in the 1960s and into the 70s, the unions won. They won everything that they had sacrificed for through the 20s, 30s, and 40s. And in the 50s, they started to get, and we're talking about things like sick leave and pensions and higher wages and seats on the board and all this sort of thing. And then what happened was, instead of instead of understanding that the capitalist movement had to keep on evolving, they stopped, and they just went to the government, and they decided, the leadership decided to sit back and can try to throw the burden of equality, at least, if not equality, at least justice, to let that whole issue go to the government. And so they spent their time and their money trying to get the right people elected that agreed with them. instead of going back to keep on pushing management and shareholders to understand that if we're going to have a consumer economy, we're going to have more splitting of the asset of the wealth of the country, and it's going to have to continue to be increase. It's going to have to continue to increase on the middle class. Now you can do that in more than one way. You could do what has been done with in some cases where the owners gave stock options, and then the stock grew enormously, and the ordinary clerk retired as a millionaire. That's one way to do it. Another way to do it is you have profit sharing as you go along. Other ways of doing it are using bonuses, and I mean there are a lot of ways to the mechanics can vary significantly, but in the end you have to have the middle class. If you want to save your democracy and your freedom of the average person, they've got to have financial resources to do that, and that's why it comes down to some kind of profit sharing, and that's what I think that the union should have been pushing for through the 70s, 80s, and 90s, and they didn't do it. Now their whole relevance is declining.
Yeah.
It's really declining. I mean, it's like 7% of the workforce now.
Right. I remember I was telling you about a family member that's a union and said he's just wasting his money. Final question, because I got my guest on the line here, my next guest, Doc. How much does, and I asked you this before a couple of weeks ago, we didn't get into it, how much does self-employment come into play into this in terms of trying to please and trying to keep the workforce? You own your own business. You don't need to worry about stock options and things of that nature. You're doing it, and you got the Ubers out here and the Lyfts and all these different businesses now that are opening up. People are quitting their job. I know people that drive Uber, they're making big money every week, driving when they want to, working when they want to. How much of that plays in terms of the workforce in the midst of this conscious capitalism?
Well, you always have stakeholders, and if your stakeholders are if you're in a business that needs team, you might be the self-employed individual because you own a company that has employees, and you would do that because you need teams. You need a team. You don't. Whatever you're trying to do, you can't do all by yourself.
Right.
The old saying, a leader without followers is a man taking a walk. So you've got to, if you need followers and you need team members, then that's how you get employees. If you're individual, the Uber driver needs the back office, and he needs the corporate advertising and all that sort of thing, and so he depends upon his stakeholders are both his customers and his employers, and even if you're an individual consultant, you still have your stakeholders. You've got your customers, you've got the people that in your network, and so on. It's always human beings are not designed to be individuals. They're designed to be part of the herd.
Good point. We can go on and on about this. We'll continue this series, Doc. I mean, because I know small business owners, and I know part of this, part of the macro, they can't really relate to, because it might just be them and one person. So it makes it a lot easier. But as you grow, then you really have to look at these things in terms of keeping your workers happy. And I think that's really Doc, let people know about your show and when they can follow you. I know you write a column when you feel like it. So talk about that.
Yeah, well, I've got my I used to write weekly columns. I wrote 421 equal weekly columns, and then I had some medical issues that caused me to have to stop doing that for a while, and so now I'm kind of on a more occasional basis, but I have one coming out in the next day or so, and they're all political commentary, and the title of my new one is My Own Personal State of the Union. So that tells you kind of what I do. So and that's on drlarryonline.com, DRLARRY online.com, and also you can get a hold of you can start getting on my list by looking either on the website or even email me at drlarry@richfieldpress.com.
Well, Doc,
and even if you tell LA you want to get my columns, I'm sure LA would forward it to me.
Absolutely. And Doc, listen, I appreciate your honesty and your expertise in this field. We'll continue to push this conscious capitalism out there for people to understand. So it's really important. You got to have a balance. Like, you can't just be an owner and just make all the profits and think that's really sort of
You're probably not going to be successful either.
Absolutely. So
because you're not going to get the people to work for you and work hard for you if you don't treat them right.
And you're not putting out a good product. And if you're not putting out, with China and everything, we're fighting and trying to fight for the best, not just quantity, but quality. So we certainly got to have the people. And, Americans are very innovative and very smart and hardworking. So we should be
all Americans, no matter what our color, no matter where we came from, no matter what language our parents spoke, we're all that way. We're all innovative and we're all smart. And by God, we're going to win.
That's right. Amen to that. Doc, I appreciate you. And Teresa, thank you so much. And I will talk with you soon off air too, sir. Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Loverman, Shabba. Mr. Loverman, Mr. Loverman, Shabba. Mr. Loverman, champion lover, know he's up tonight. No, champion lover, gonna make you feel alright. Yeah, champion lover, know he's up tonight. No, champion lover, nicely up tonight.
I don't know a girl. If I love it, looking for you, walk up on the right man. Oh, love it, only for you, walk up on the right man. Oh, if I love it, looking for you, walk up on the right man. Oh, love it, only for you, walk up on the right man. I'm a man that got this coming from England. To satisfy her soul and also she wants a man. Oh, if someone runs, she fucked up fast. I will make you explode just like a bomb. Every hour, every minute, man. Every second, them call me Mr. Lover, man. Them call me Mr. Lover.
I'm not gonna take it easy. You won't get away tonight. The vibe that's flowing through me makes me feel alright. You can't say you're full of action. Now it's a chance to show me emotion. I've waited so long. You better come on strong, Mr. Loverman. Thrill me with it, Mr. Loverman. Mr. Loverman. I can't wait.
Wait it for what? You have the inner when they come to me with it. I'm going to lay down and make you feel me with it. Because feeling that is my favorite habit. And when me lay down, you know me not run from it. They call me Mr. Lover, man. They call me Mr. Lover. Mr. Lover, man. They call me Mr. Lover. They call me Mr. Lover, man. They call me Mr. Lover. A woman take a sister coming from England. To satisfy her soul and also she wants a man. Boom! It's a man in you buck up front. I'm going to make you explode just like a bomb. Every hour, every minute, and every second, them call me Miss a Lover, man, them call me Miss a Lover.
Champion lover, know he's up tonight. No, champion lover, wanna make you feel alright. Whoa, champion lover, know he's up tonight. Mr. Lover Man, would you never know your mountains?
If I love it, looking for you, walk up on the right man. Oh, love it, hunting for you, walk up on the right man. Oh, if I love it, looking for you, walk up on the right man. Oh, love it, hunting for you, walk up on the right man. I'm a magic that is coming from England. To satisfy her soul and also she wants a man. It's about run, she fucked up fast. I will make you explode just like a bomb. Every hour, every minute, and every second, they call me Miss a Lover, man, they call me Miss a Lover.
I'm not gonna take it easy. You won't get away tonight. The vibe that's flowing through me makes me feel alright. You can say you're full of attraction. Now it's a chance to show me emotion. I've waited so long. You better come on strong, Mr. Lover Man. Do me with it, Mr. Lover Man. Mr. Lover Man. I can't wait.
Wait it for what? You have the time when they come to me with it. I'm going to lay down and make you kill me with it. Because really that is my favorite habit. And when me lay down, you know me not run from it. They call me Miss a Lover, man, they call me Miss a Lover. Miss a Lover, man, they call me Miss a Lover. They call me Miss a Lover, man, they call me Miss a Lover. A woman take a trip coming from England. To satisfy her soul and also she wants a man. Boom! It's a man ranking you buck up fun. I'm going to make you explode just like a bomb. Every hour, every minute, and every second, them call me Miss a Lover, man, them call me Miss a Lover.
Champion lover, know he's up tonight. No, champion lover, wanna make you feel alright. Whoa, champion lover, know he's up tonight. Mr. Lover Man, would you never know your mountains?
But it's a loving you want and a loving you want to get. You never experience this a love yet. And this a love and make you walk up a sweat. And in this a love you not gonna live and fight. As I love you from you to come straight to you. They call me Miss a Lover, man, they call me Miss a Lover. Miss a Lover, man, they call me Miss a Lover. I'm going to tell you when they call me Miss a Lover, man. It's when me love the girls I'm depending on. Caroline said they like to one another, man, they call me Miss a Lover, man, they call me Miss a Lover.
Mr. Lover Man, give me with it, Mr. Lover Man. Give me with it, Mr. Lover Man. Shabba, 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 shabba, shabba. Shabba, shabba, shabba.
Welcome back to the Batchelor News Radio Show on the Batchelor News Radio Network. I'm here with the Commissioner of the Mid-Eastern Athletic Conference, Sonia Stills. And first of all, Madam Commissioner, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you for having me and including me in your show.
Absolutely. It's exciting tournament.
Yes.
Nail biters on the women's side and the men's side. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just been fabulous. What's your thoughts so far on the tournament as it winds down?
I am, really excited. This being my first one, and then first having the fans back in since COVID, it's tremendous. And, I don't think we're up to our numbers pre-COVID, but we're going to grow from here, and it's exciting, particularly when you have two hometown teams here competing, and the fans. It's just awesome.
Take us to the decision to take the position that was offered to you, Dr. Thomas leaves, what went into that, and why take the position?
Wow, that was years and years, when Dr. Thomas told me, you need to prepare, and I would tell him, I don't want that job, I don't want no, and at the time I was like, I want 11 bosses, like, shoot, you bad enough, one. And so it took a little while for me to kind of get into the mode of being upfront. I love being behind the scenes. I love getting my hands dirty and, making sure the person up front has everything they need to shine. And so, as it got closer and it was time when when the presidents and chancellors did the national search, I was like, all right, let's go ahead and put my name in the hat. And I had so much support to go forward. And I was saying I hadn't even interviewed since 1998. And so it was a challenge. So it was like that nervousness of, oh my gosh, let's go ahead and see if I can do this and let go and let God. And so I just took the leap, and the presidents and chancellors all agreed that they understood my vision for the conference. It was going to be different from Commissioner Thomas, and just step out on faith that I'm going to be able to move the conference forward.
Madam Commissioner, 19 years with this conference. Yes. You know it inside out, and you've been talking about how you like to get your hands dirty, and it was little out of the realm for you to come out and be this commissioner. Yep. What are some of the things that you took from your 2 decades of being with this conference that you use in this position?
Wow, being ready to pivot. The great thing about Dr. Thomas is he really prepared me for this. He always challenged me. So it was never the same job each year. So it was putting things in front of me so that, I can learn and grow from those challenges. And one of those things was esports. When he talked about wanting to do that for the conference, and I was like, okay, let's step up, and say, hey, I want to do this. I want to do the research, and I want to, start this, and it became a conference initiative. So it's those challenges so that the job wasn't boring. So there's always something new and different, and then the ability to be creative. And step out and do some new things. It's one thing that we don't want to do is to keep stagnant, and so he allowed us the opportunity to move forward. And that's one of the things with my vision, is to be able to storytell about the conference and its history and the member institutions, on how we can do that more on a national platform.
If you're just joining us, we're talking with Madam Commissioner Steeles here from the MEAC on the Batchelor News Radio Show. Commissioner, you talked about the challenges. FAM leaves, Bethune leaves, Hampton, A&T. What was some of the thoughts, even before you got the position? So what are some of the challenges losing those 4 historic institutions? So what are some of the challenges you knew coming into it, and what are you looking at now?
So I think one of the challenges is the perception that the conference is going to fold. And the conference is not going to fold. Over our 51 years, realignment has been in the conference. Florida A&M came in and out. North Carolina Central came in and out. So we're not a stranger to that. And so it's the perception that if 1 or 2 institutions leave, that all of a sudden the conference is going to implode. One of the great things about when I was looking in or interviewing for the position is having the commitment of all 8 presidents and chancellors about the sustainability of the program, and that we're going to move forward with it. So I think that's one of the things that came of the institutions leaving the conference. And so it's time for us to show that we're strong, and shoot, if you watch the celebration bowl, obviously we still got great football. Absolutely. And being here at the tournament, obviously we have great basketball, and we have 16 sports total, and so we're strong, and we're going to keep moving forward.
When you talk about moving forward and your progressive thought, what about expansion? You don't obviously get into institutions that may join, but is that something that you're really looking at right now?
Absolutely. Obviously, expansion is always part of the strategic and long-range plan of the conference. And so we always want to make sure that we don't rush to get an institution in here if they don't meet our mission. We have to align athletically and most importantly academically. We want to make sure that when we bring institutions in that it lifts our academic profile. And so one of the things that we have strived to do is be methodical and strategic and work with a firm to help us look at not only us internally and how we can continue to be a strong Elite Eight member institutions, but how we can make it strong for another individual or another school to come in and join us.
And with that being said, what are the challenges in doing that in the midst of still, COVID is so slowly going away, but there's still concerns with all of that. Are there any challenges with COVID as you look at some of these institutions that you would add?
No, I don't think so. I think one of the things is the institutions have to do their own vetting to make sure that that's going to be a good move for them because it's got to make sense on both sides. And it's not like the conference is desperate. And we want to make sure that the institution is coming in who's going to be financially stable and that they're going to be a long-time member of the conference. So you really have to look at all aspects when you're trying to make a move. I think I've heard several individuals, I get a lot of stuff on the blogs and all that. Just grab a Division II institution here and there, but to understand that you have to look at the financial implications of coming from a Division II to Division I. It's not like we're just going to move up. You got to pay that $1.6 million application fee. But then when you're talking about Division II, who the max, I won't say the max, but the minimum number of sports sponsorship is 10 sports, and we're at 14. So when you move up, okay, you got to add so many more sports. Staffing, facilities, scholarships, and look at the Title IX implications on top of that. So it's really taking a good look at what you want to do as far as to move to Division I. But in the matter of fact of just moving in a Division I to another conference and what that's going to bring to your institution.
Couple more questions. You're watching and listening to the Batchelor News Radio Show. I'm LA Batchelor, Madam Commissioner here.
Apologize.
And Madam Commissioner, you are the first African-American woman, if I'm not mistaken, at Division I level as a commissioner. Have you spoken with Madam McWilliams at the CIAA? And tell me how historic this means to you.
Wow. I'm going to answer your last question first. It's tremendous. It's humbling. All it makes me want to do is help the individuals, women that's coming before me, because I may be the first, but I should not be the last. Jackie McWilliams is my cheerleader. She's my supporter. She was there when I talked about applying for the commissioner position, and she was like, I was waiting on you. And so, and she checks on me, and that's the support is so important, and it really, really moves me. And she is here at the tournament just to support me. She's like, I'm coming to support you, and that means the world to me.
Final question. Moving forward after the tournament, what is one of the first things you want to do moving forward in terms of really just promoting the MEAC? I know you got basketball, football, the other sports, but what are you looking at first?
I'm definitely looking at more exposure for my Olympic sports. I think that's one thing that our Olympic sports are overlooked. It's easy to get, football and basketball on our national platforms, but how can we improve that on our Olympic sports? And that's one thing I'm definitely looking to do. And then, of course, still moving towards esports, moving our schools into varsity programs. We have teams, we're starting, we're growing, but I really want to be able to have the first HBCU varsity conference.
Wow. Well, Madam Commissioner, much success. Thank you for giving me the time. I really appreciate it. And best of luck. God bless. And
Thank
we
you.
appreciate your time.
Love you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just wanna be a good man to you, girl. That's all I wanna be. Hey, that's all I wanna be, baby. That's all I wanna be, baby. So I just wanna be a good man to you, girl. That's all I wanna be, baby. That's all I wanna be, baby. That's all I wanna be, baby. So I just wanna pick the phone up every single time you call. It don't matter where I'm at. I wanna be chillin' with Obama, talking business. See you call and tell him, hold up, I gotta take this. Let the world wait. Wanna wear it like a medal. Tell him that I'm a spoken for a fellow. The ladies say hello like I'm who they wanna be. I do everything with my left, I know you see it. Trifling, listen baby, I ain't nowhere near perfect, but I promise to make it all worth it. Giving you the thing to be the man you deserve it. Making sure you're smiling, way more than you're hurting. Taking my time to hear you when you're talking. Reminding you how bad you are often. Keep them legs shaking, making love and making sure you understand that it's in my plan. So I just wanna be a good man to you, girl. That's all I wanna be, baby. That's all I wanna be, baby. That's all I wanna be. So I just wanna be a good man to you, girl. That's all I wanna be. That's all I wanna be, baby. That's all I wanna be. Tell the truth, tell the whole damn truth. Never leaving out the parts I know gon' upset you. Never doing things that I ain't got no business doing. When you're around, when you're not around, I respect you. And I would never make a fool out you, baby. No, I never make a fool out you, baby. I'm making sure you can trust me beyond the shadow of a doubt. So when them bras run up on you with my name in their mouth, you tell them you can be gone with all that. Cause you know what we got is beyond all that. You know we got that real thing. Gonna be the object of some hating. Hey, but we gon' be alright, we gon' be alright. Making love after every fight. Girl, from the day I put that ring up on your hand, in front of friends and fam, I had a plan. And my plan is to be a good man to you, girl. That's all I wanna be. Hey, that's all I wanna be, baby. That's all I wanna be. Said I wanna be a good man to you, girl. That's all I wanna be. Said it's all I wanna be, baby. All I wanna be. Oh, la 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 la, la 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 la, la 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 la. Oh, baby, I wanna be a good man to you, baby.
Welcome back to the Batchelor News Radio Show on the Batchelor News Radio Network and WCOM. Of course, you can watch the broadcast at Roku, IBM TV, and of course, you can watch it on Big Mind Entertainment, on Fire Stick, and LA Batchelor at YouTube. Of course, Pad Nation as well, and audio version at thebatchelornews.airtime.pro. We thank you for joining us. Thanks to our guests. I want to bring in my longtime friend and co-host and colleague, the editor-in-chief of Black Athlete Sports Newsroom. He's Tony T. Mac McLean. And T, I appreciate you coming on as always, sir.
How's it going?
Good, good. Want to bring in our other guest too from the Black Collar Sports page. Man, we haven't seen this brother on these airwaves in a while, but good to have him. Always good to have him because he's a Steelers fan too. So we gotta have the Steelers people in there too. Even though I'm not happy with the quarterback we got today, he is Lute Williams. T Mac, Lute, I appreciate you both.
Glad to be with you, LA, and with you, Tony.
How you doing, man?
Hey, so listen, I did the interview, Lute and T, with Madam Commissioner Sonia Stills, and she talked about losing those 4 historic institutions, expansion, and the not only the pressure of coming in with Dr. Thomas leaving and coming in when they losing institutions and the pressure of that, and being the first Black woman at D1 as a commissioner. And she really was open and honest. Lute, she's got, she's been with the conference for 19, 20 years. So she knows the ins and outs. She said that Dr. Thomas really kind of groomed her for some of the challenges that's come. What do you think of how she handled this particular tournament thus far? And by the way, their football, if people might say, okay, they lost, but I think they did pretty good in the Celebration Bowl. So, what say you about her?
Well, a lot of things. First of all, I think that when she took over the position, her first Zoom interview, she said, the Dr. Thomas era is over. It's my time now. I thought that was very bold of her. She recognizes that there are challenges ahead of her. The fact that, 4 institutions over the last 5-6 years have left, that she's down to 8 basketball playing institutions, only 6 playing football. She can't afford to lose another. So, I mean, it's as they say, a $60,000 question, which is, what is the MEAC going to do? How are they going to survive? I think the tournament was probably easy for her. Like you said, I think she's been the wings beneath, or the wind beneath Dr. Thomas's wings for 19 years. She has basically everything that he has done, every initiative that he has brought about, every development, whether it be TV packages, whether it be promotional, whether it be any kind of thing that was going on, she was involved in it. And Dr. Thomas made it very clear when he announced that he was stepping down back in the end of the summer, that he was supporting her. He couldn't say that publicly, but he said, it's only natural that she would take over. Obviously, people would say that he's left her in something of a conundrum in terms of losing as many schools as they have. But if you've kept your eye on things, conference realignment is the play of the day. Everybody is moving. Both A&T and Hampton that left the conference have already left the Big South, moved to the CAA. So there was a lot of speculation that there were going to be more MEAC schools leaving, that Howard was being offered some places to move, that Delaware State was being offered some places to move, that Morgan State was being offered some places to move. So far, based on the reporting and the research that I've done, those institutions, particularly Morgan and Howard, have basically said they're going to stay in the MEAC. Dell State, we have not talked to any high ups at Dell State, but she may be secure right now with 8 football playing institutions and 8 basketball playing institutions and 6 football playing institutions. But it's kind of, it's very tenuous when you're in that situation. So yeah. I think she'll do a good job. I think she certainly understands the position. She understands what's at stake. Certainly, I think many people said that Dr. Thomas really bowed out at a very bad time for her, that maybe he should have seen the conference through this particular phase. But after 19 years and after climbing a lot of hills, dealing with a lot of coming and goings of institutions, it was, I think there was also a consensus out there that Dr. Thomas had done as much as he could do to keep the conference alive. And now it was a time for somebody else to take a shot. So I thought maybe Lynn Thompson out of Bethune-Cookman, but I found out at the MEAC tournament that Lynn Thompson, a longtime AD at Bethune-Cookman, had some health issues that he was really dealing with that caused him to retire, step down after many years at Bethune-Cookman. He is actually assisting her. I think that's a good fit, excuse me, because Lynn Thompson is a get stuff done kind of guy. And he's a guy who will kind of rescue, as he did Bethune-Cookman many times when people thought that they were out of money, that they couldn't compete. He was very much an inspiration for Bethune-Cookman. So he's on as an assistant commissioner. They did lose my good friend, my brother Dito, who took the athletics director's job at his alma mater,
Right.
Alcorn State. He's
Right.
another that's been a mainstay over the last 12 or so years in the MEAC. So they have some challenges. They have some challenges for sure. I thought they got through the tournament well. Not anything unusual that I could tell in terms of what happened, but certainly they have some challenges ahead.
Yeah, and Tony, it was a lot of talk about the friction. Allegedly, Luke probably knows better that with Dr. Harvey and Dr. Thomas and Hampton and all of that, and Hampton with the power and the pull that they had with all the other schools, it is what it is. She also talked about conferring with Jackie McWilliams, CIAA, learning, probably getting some of that pushback as a woman, right, and some other things. But she seems, I think, as Luke said, having that experience, I thought the gentleman from Alcorn State was actually going to get the job, Luke said, but of course he went to Alcorn State, his alma mater, to take that over, and he's been around for, 12, 13 years. But she seems like she's in place. And one of the things she said, T, also, is that she's getting all these people on blogs and everything saying you get a nice quality D2 team and all this other team. And she's like, listen, we got to have the right fit. They got to have the right, they got to be financially secure. And those are some of the things that she has to be concerned with.
This is not something that's just going to happen overnight. And I think in many ways, because she's been groomed by Dr. Thomas, she knows the ins and outs. I gather she's probably a good poker player because she's not going to give away all her secrets right now. I think she's probably got some things in the back burner that she's working on. I don't think per se Thomas left at a bad time. I just think he felt like she was, I think if nothing else, him leaving showed incredible confidence in her, because this is, like Lute was saying, tis the season for, playing checkers in college sports now. When you realize all the TV money that's going on, when you realize and see the other factor, and I want to get Lute's take on this as well, the NIL factor as well. That's an element that basically none of these conferences have never really had to deal with, and now it's it is something that has to be dealt with, good, bad, or indifferent. I'm glad for the kids, but you get the feeling that at least on her end that there's some things going on, and Lute, I guess the blue and white elephant in the room right now, I guess, is Tennessee State, because you hear all sorts of rumors about them going to the SWAC and everything else, and you sort of get the feeling that if they do move, which is, I think, the other thing that people are sort of jumping the gun on, but if they should decide to quote unquote come home, it could be a deal breaker for either conference.
And Lou, just as you answer that, if I can add to what Tony was saying in terms of the NAL, is that going to hurt HBCUs in terms of recruiting? Because there's always going to be some kind of notion with with some of our kids that if I go to a PWI, I'm going to get more exposure or whatever the case may be. So with this part of the NAL coming in where guys are getting endorsements and this and that and all that stuff, is that going to hurt some of the recruiting for HBCUs?
No, I don't think, not at all. Let me say, when A&T was contemplating its move to leave the Big South and go to the CAA, their athletic director Earl Hilton at a committee meeting from, I think, an executive committee meeting from their board of trustees, was a public meeting, and he made a presentation to the board about why he was recommending A&T to leave the Big South and go to the CAA. And he talked about the Ross case. The Ross case was decided back in July that really has shaken up college athletics administration as it relates to this whole conference realignment idea. Everybody knows from the top, was it Oklahoma and Texas are going to the SEC, for example. You know, what he outlined in his presentation to that executive committee was how the Ross case, and this related to likeness, related to the monopoly that the NCAA was operating under. And it basically said that the NCAA had been operating as a monopoly, and it required the NCAA to change the way that it was doing business. And one of the ways that it was doing business is that they were controlling so much of college athletics, so much of the decision making, so much of the rules, so much of the enforcement when all these things are going on. So what Earl Hilton said in his presentation was that because of the Ross case, the power to make these decisions, to enforce and everything, to enforce rules, was now going to be in the hands of conferences and divisions and not the NCAA. And as a result of that, it behooved everyone that they can to get in the strongest conference that they could possibly get in. I'm giving you a long way to answer this question. So what he was pointing out, what he was trying to say, Earl Hilton saying that this was dictating A&T moving from the Big South, which is most people considered when they left the MEAC, it was a lateral move for both Hampton and A&T when they moved from the MEAC. It's a one bid conference, basketball. It's a FCS conference, football, in those two major sports. You know, A&T obviously, as you've seen, finished second in indoor track in NCAA. So it behooved them to be in the strongest, best functioning, having the best markets to compete in that they could possibly get in. And that's exactly what he did in terms of, no, don't come over here. Somebody is trying to approach me. Excuse me. I'm in my car. Okay. Yeah, I've stopped in the parking of the shopping center. But anyway, so the idea of A&T moving, and this was Earl Hilton's reasoning, was that the stronger conference you're in, the CAA, and I'm not sure, I think they got more than one. I think they got at least two teams in the big dance. I'm not sure, but I know Delaware is in, and I think one other team is in on the men's side. You know, and being in the conference like that was going to be to their greatest advantage as we go down as we go forward, because a lot of this authority and enforcement abilities and whatnot are going to go away from the NCAA. And the NIL, it was a part of that. The NIL was actually at the basis of this Ross case. So the NIL was basically as the result of the Ross case was that NIL was approved, and the result was that the NCAA had an emergency meeting of all of their members, and they are restructuring the book. They're saying the book is going to go from 400 pages to about 200 pages because the NCAA is going to get out of the business of supervising and punishing institutions. So the NIL is a part of that Ross case. So I don't think it's going to hurt them, because when you got people like Deion Sanders, when you got people like Eddie George, when you got people like Hugh Jackson, when you got today Jackson State just announced Alabama State's basketball coach Mo Williams, former NBA player, just resigned at Alabama State to come to become the head coach of Jackson State. the shift is going on now is towards these celebrity coaches, these NBA, NFL, Hugh Jackson down at Grambling coaches that if anyone understands the whole idea of taking advantage of your name, image, and likeness, it should be those guys. They've been through that whole process. So
Right.
I don't think it's going to hurt recruiting. It may even help, and it may even put HBCUs in a better position to compete against some of these other schools, because that advantage that they had before in terms of tripling and quadrupling, if not more, of the budgets, now it's an open field. It's an open situation. If you have somebody that's marketable, like Deion's son, Shador, he's already got a deal in place, and I'm sure, and Deion says he's going to be doing that for not only for his own players, but he's going to be trying to create situations for others. So no, I don't think it's going to hurt them. Obviously we have to wait and see. But if they keep landing Travis Hunters the way Deion did, you don't have to worry about that. They're going to come looking for those recruits if they can continue what Deion has done.
And just to your point, Lute, I think Delaware got into the big dance, and then UNCW and Townsend went to the NIT. But in that conference, they got 3 teams playing on the men's side at the very least.
Okay.
Postseason. Talking with Luke Williams of the Black House Sports Page, Tony T. Mac McLean, obviously from BASN Newsroom. Luke, a lot has been said in terms of the accolades of Dr. McClellan at the SWAC and how they're doing their business, and bringing in Pham and bringing in Bethune. Talk about that. Is that a template for maybe the MEAC and how Madam Commissioner will be doing things in terms of, because they really have increase their marketing and promotions. Certainly it helps to have a Deion Sanders and people like that in that conference, but talk about what McClellan's done as opposed to what maybe the MEAC can use from that.
Well, I don't want to take anything from Dr. McClellan. He's definitely forward-thinking, very positive guy. But listen, the one that has raised all boats is named Coach Prime Deion Sanders.
Right.
Dr. McClellan is fortunate that he has taken the position and Deion Sanders has entered the conference. Because when was the last time any coach from an HBCU was hired and he gets an interview on Good Morning America or the Today Show, whichever one Michael Strahan is on? Nobody gets that. Hugh Jackson didn't get that. Eddie George didn't get that. Only maybe if Jerry Rice got it, maybe he would get an interview with Michael Strahan. But the bottom line is he has been very fortunate that Deion Sanders is just, listen, when Deion Sanders sneezes, it's news. If he passes gas, it'll be front page news. Okay. So, I mean, the needle has moved because of Deion Sanders, not necessarily because of Dr. McClellan. Getting Florida A&M and Bethune-Cookman, was not so much a move that was made by Dr. McClellan. It was a move dictated by the fact that Hampton and then A&T left the MEAC, and Florida A&M and Bethune-Cookman were going to be isolated way down south for all the rest of the teams in the MEAC.
Right.
So I think what he's done, and I think he's probably done a good job of it, is take advantage of the opportunities, recognize the blessing that Deion Sanders has been, and maximize that. And, he's talking about these deals and he's trying to put together deals. One deal that he put together fell through because Jackson State jumped the gun in terms of trying to get out of the Southern Heritage Classic where Jackson State played Tennessee State. And they were talking about a deal that the Legion Field in Birmingham was going to give them to make $3 and $4, $5, $6 million. And then Southern Heritage Classic folks said, yeah, well, you're going to get sued by us. You're going to lose all that money if you do it. And Jackson State had to reverse field. And now they're going to play in the game. And they have a 3-year contract to play for the next 3 years. So, Dr. McClellan is intelligent enough, smart enough to try to take advantage of every opportunities. But those opportunities maybe are not going to be as financially a financial windfall as he thought initially.
Hmm. Yeah, I agree with you. I think it helps to have those folks that come into your conference to make it better, and you do reap the benefits.
let me
Go ahead.
let me say this, LA. You
Yeah.
know, I do every year. I do a list of the largest attended games in HBCU football and Black college football. You know, every year it's the Magic City Classic, it's the Bayou Classic. You know, it's the a series of games. Well, this year games involving Jackson State were like 7 of the top 10 games. they they basically doubled their home attendance this year. They had 3 home games over 50,000, including the SWAC championship game. 3 games. They drew 48,000 one week. They drew over 50,000 in 3 different games, and then because they were in the Celebration Bowl, they broke the Celebration Bowl attendance record. So that's something that you can't pay for, you can't anticipate. And it's all, from my opinion, it's all on the look. Jackson State has been the perennial leader in FCS attendance, like 29 out of 31 years. But they had never averaged 40 plus thousand. The best they had ever done was like 32,000. This year they averaged like 47, 48,000. They broke the FCS attendance record. You can't pay for that. You can't, and all of these mentions that Dion is getting, the documentaries on him, 24/7 Sports Barstool Sports is following him everywhere, doing documentaries. That has been, I think, the biggest contributor to whatever the SWAC has done, whatever the SWAC is in position to do.
Lou, we got a question. I don't know if you could see it, but it goes to Hugh Jackson. The gentleman didn't leave his name. He said he's an alum of Grambling, and he was very upset that Hugh Jackson tried to have Art Briles as his OC, his offensive coordinator. Should he be fired? Because if he made a bad hire there, he may make other bad decisions for the program.
Well, I mean, there's been a whole lot of stuff related to, not only did he hire Briles and then Briles resigned, but also Doug Williams came out and said that if that went through, he was through with Grambling.
Right.
And man, the Grambling people online, on Twitter and other places jumped all over Doug Williams. They called him every name in the book. They said that he's a hero to folks outside of Grambling, but to Grambling, he is a pariah.
Wow.
Now you got to remember that big fiasco at Grambling, when they had to cancel parts of their season, they finished 0-10, and there was like a players' rebellion, is when Doug Williams was the coach. And when they talked about the inadequate weight room and the any number of other kinds of substandard things that were going on, Doug Williams was the coach there. So first of all, no, I don't think Hugh Jackson should be fired. Hugh Jackson was only doing what he's seen being done in the SWAC. Not only has Deion Sanders been hired, but Eddie Robinson, an NFL veteran, 12-year NFL veteran, was hired as the new coach at Alabama State. Now you bring in Hugh Jackson. This is the direction that the SWAC is going. It's all about the biggest bang for your buck. Mo Williams coming to Jackson State. Ashley Robinson feels like he had a home run with Deion, and he's trying to hit another home run with Mo Williams. Now, what Mo Williams has done at Alabama State, Deion took 2 years, really, spring season, and this year, before his team was winning at all. Mo Williams hadn't run anything in Alabama State, but he's a Jackson native. He's an NBA veteran. This is the way the SWAC is going. In fact, I just saw today, I think that Mississippi Valley, got rid of Lindsey Hunter because he wasn't getting the job done. He didn't turn it around, even though he had NBA credentials. He didn't turn the thing around in Mississippi Valley. They've gone to George Ivory, the former coach at Arkansas Pine Bluff. But I'm saying Hugh Jackson is only trying to play the card and the hand that's dealt him, which is, y'all want big time, y'all want turn things around. I'm going to get the baddest guy that I can get, and his particular pass there was this whole thing about, give a man a second chance. He made some mistakes. He's learned from it. He's gone forward. Didn't work out. He decided rather than be that distraction, he would resign. So I wouldn't be surprised. You can look for somebody else with a big name to be hired by Grambling and Hugh Jackson. No, I don't think he should be fired. I think he tried to make a splash hire and it backfired.
Yeah, and I think Tony, the word judgment kept coming up in a lot of circles, and I saw a lot of. It's amazing that Doug Williams is kind of he's got like the Bradshaw effect going on. Like they don't fans in Pittsburgh don't like Bradshaw anymore for a lot of different reasons and stuff. So it's amazing that Doug Williams fell off. But I think Tony, judgment has been sort of the word they were using with Hugh Jackson. A lot of people are saying, well, if he's gonna bring in someone who had plausible deniability with this whole sex scandal at Baylor, then what other bad quote unquote judgment is he going to make?
Yeah, one would have thought that I get the whole thing of trying to make a splash and everything, but this was something where you could, I mean, forgive me, common damn sense just didn't seem to didn't seem to come to the door here. You got to know that there was going to be some sort of a backlash in regards to this because of this guy's background. It is kind of interesting, Lou, that Doug basically went from hero to zero in that. Does it speak more of the alumni, or does it speak more of where we're at now in athletics?
No, I think I think it's a little combination of both, but it's certainly where we are now in athletics, particularly HBCU athletics. Again, I can't emphasize this enough, man. Deion has changed the game, man. He's moved the needle incredibly. He's changed the game. I mean, we were all talking 2 years ago this time. We were talking about how Howard landed the kid, the McCoy Maker kid, and how that was a game changer. And it certainly was. And I think that Kenny Blakeney proved this year with or without McCoy Maker, he's going to be a difference maker at Howard. He has the background, he has the pedigree, he has the coaching chops. I think that Howard is going to be a force to be reckoned with. So no, I think it's the environment right now, particularly as it relates to HBCU sports. It's Jerry Rice came out. Okay, Jerry Rice said, "Oh, maybe I need to think about coaching." When has Jerry Rice has been too busy making those knee brace commercials?
I know with Brett Favre.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden he's saying, maybe I need Eddie Robinson. Eddie Robinson's a guy I got to know because when I did some games back in the early 2000s, we hired him as a color commentator after 12 years in the NFL, and he swore out to me he would never coach. But then when he took the job, I called and said, Eddie, what happened? He said, man, look, we tried some other stuff. It's time, it's time, and it fits with whatever else is going on. They want somebody with NFL credentials. Everybody is harped on the fact that no HBCU players were drafted in the last NFL draft. So they Deion says that'll never happen again. So he's going to make sure that he's got enough talented folks, and he'll probably get James Houston will probably get drafted somewhere, I would think, this year. But he's got some other talented players that will certainly, probably be drafted going forward. But when Jerry Rice starts talking about coaching, you probably can just get a wish list of who are the HBCU guys who have name recognition, who would make a splash by the time they get there. Eddie George was not thinking about coaching. Eddie George was talking about playing golf, and on his plane, getting ready to go play golf, on his private plane, getting ready to go play golf when they called him and asked him to become the coach at Tennessee State. But he said, he likes it, So I think it's just the environment that we're in right now with HBCU football, particularly, but HBCU sports.
I got a couple of questions, and I want to keep you to the both of you. Lou, Chris in Memphis asked, I guess it's to both of you, how do you think the CIAA will do in Baltimore? I was there. They had a nice crowd. It was nice.
Go ahead, Lou, because I wasn't there. I'll just go by what I saw. It looks like it's just on the surface. It looks like it was maybe not a slam dunk, but for a first year, very impressive.
And
very,
we'll have
very
Commissioner McWilliams on fairly soon too.
Yeah, I didn't make it either, Tony or LA. My son got married in Tulum, Mexico, about 2 hours south of Cancun.
Wow.
So it was the first tournament I've been doing. This is my 28th year doing the Black College Sports Page. It's the first tournament I've missed in 28 years. But I had a choice of going to Baltimore in mid-February or going to the beach in Tulum in Mexico in mid-February for my son's wedding.
What a tough choice that was.
Yeah,
huh?
right. I had no TV. I barely had internet service, but I did talk to people that were there, people that attended. They were there for the whole week. People like Stephen Gaither from HBCU Game Day, and he said it was certainly no worse than Charlotte. It was not. It didn't have the nightlife downtown in Baltimore the way it did in Charlotte, but this was the first year. And I think that a lot of people wanted to make sure that it got through the first year. And I think more will be coming back. I plan to be there. And if I were not in Mexico, I would have been there. But I think they'll be fine in Baltimore. I think it's a good change. They get a good feel for, how well they can do in a city outside of Charlotte after 15 years there. So everything I heard said that it was good. And I think the mayor of Baltimore did a interview this week saying the same thing, that they thought it was a great, it was a boom for the city. So it's different, obviously it's different. I did a story for HBCU Game Day, CIAA tournament retrospective. The history of the tournament says it goes north and south. It'll stay in the south for 15, 20 years. They were in 15 years in Charlotte, 6 years in Winston-Salem, 6 years in Raleigh. Now they're going north. I wouldn't be surprised that they'll do probably 6 or more years in Baltimore. They'll probably come down to Richmond or somewhere like that for a while. So it goes back between North Carolina in the south and Virginia, and now Baltimore in the north. So I think it was a good start to it from all that I've heard.
Yeah, it was. I thought the arena as it relates to parking and everything, it was really, really good. I was there a few days, and like you said, the nightlife, and as a reporter, and I don't really care about the nightlife, but I mean, I get the understanding of it with Charlotte and Baltimore, and I think the misconception too is that it goes to Baltimore, like it's still the old Baltimore, crime city, this, that, and the other. So CIAA is going to be stupid enough to put themselves in that position where they're not going to be safe. I thought was disingenuous.
Let me ask this, LA. My big question is always, how was the basketball?
The basketball was good, and very competitive. Typical, it would. I actually think, to be honest with you, because I spent a little more time at the MEAC, that their basketball was a little bit better. Certainly, you had the 1 and 2 and the women's side. Obviously, Howard's been really good for a long time. Norfolk State just couldn't pull it out. And then, of course, Norfolk with Coppin State coming out of nowhere with the upset, and Norfolk showing, being about their business and getting it done, which I'm going to get to the seeding in just a bit. We do have another question, and I want to put that up there and ask Tony first if I can get it up there. Thomas asked, and we'll go to Luke real quick, what schools should the MEAC add, T? And then, Commissioner said, well, we're just not going to throw anybody in. We're going to look at it. And she even said in the interview that they have a firm. She was very clear. They have a firm that's going to help with the process. So, Tony, what say you? What do you think?
I'll go with what I mentioned before. I would think Tennessee State. I mean, I know proximity, it might be sort of out of the way, but I think, given the history, given, again, the climate that we're in, I think it would be a slam dunk for them. Now, whether Tennessee State is willing to leave the OVC, and remember, they've been at the OVC for a long time now. So it's going to, one would think it's going to take a lot for them to want to say, hey, you want to go to the MEAC or even go to the SWAC. So let's put it this way. I would guess that Tennessee State is probably on that list of who they wouldn't mind trying to jump on.
And Lou, I would think Tennessee State proximity, like he said, makes more sense in the SWAC with Alabama State and all that kind of thing there. But one of the things that I don't understand, a lot of these schools, these PWIs, they look at it as winning. Listen, Oklahoma and the other team is going to the SEC. They moved,
Texas.
right? But their coach said, "Oh no, I'm not going to be in the SEC trying to coach football. I'm going to USC where I could try to win." So you would think A&T want to go somewhere where they're going to dominate in track and football, and Hampton's going to do the same thing, and Tennessee State might be the same thing. So why don't they look more at winning? Because the more you win, the numbers and the revenue is probably going to be flowing even more in those cases.
Yeah, but the reality is that the dollars are in those big conferences. Even though the Oklahoma coach decided to go out to Southern Cal, look, when they get as many teams in bowl games, when they get, I think, 9 teams in the NCAA tournament, you do that math and talk about how much money flows into the conference as a result of that. There's no comparison. Winning is good, and will probably give you more money. Ask Alabama or somebody like that, but or Georgia for that matter. But being in a conference that has the big TV contract, that has the conference itself, whether your institution is winning or not, Oklahoma being in the SEC means more than Oklahoma being in the Big 12. Okay, and the people that are crunching the numbers know that. And that's why it was no big deal for Texas and Oklahoma to say, bye-bye Big 12, hello SEC. Okay? How many did the Big 12 get in? I think 5 into the NCAA tournament?
I think they got 6. I think they got 6 or 7.
Okay, no, I think it was 9, and then the next was 6. I think it was 3 conferences that got 6. But my point is that if the SEC is getting 9 in basketball, we already know how many national championships they won in the last decade in football, and how many have gone to bowl games. But listen, go back to your question about who should they target, and the fact that what you said that Commissioner Stills is saying has been consistent from the beginning. We're just not going to go out and invite everyone. So the teams, I don't think Tennessee State's a real target just because of the footprint situation. You're right. I think there's been some talk. Even Eddie George came out and said that the OVC was dead because the OVC is losing some of its prime schools already. They are down to only 6 schools. There is a discussion, I understand, that the OVC would combine with the MEAC for some enhancements of their schedules. That may be an option, as they're both are facing only having 6 football playing schools. They would get together, form an East and West division. I don't know what they would call it, but that's supposed to be one of the proposals that's being looked at. The Big South is also considering that because they are down to 6 schools, football playing schools. After they lost Monmouth, they lost Kennesaw State, they lost North Alabama, they lost A&T, and they lost Hampton. They lost 5 schools in a matter of no time. They are looking at combining with another conference. They may combine with the MEAC, or they may combine with the OVC. So there are a lot of things on the table right now. I've said, when I look at the CIAA, that they may target Virginia State, they may target Fayetteville State, they may target Bowie State. Bowie State's got a great football thing going. Fayetteville State's got a good football thing going and a good basketball thing. They were able to win it this year.
Right.
That would be something I would think that they would look at. Virginia State was already looked at, and the Virginia State AD, as well as the president, basically came out and said, we're not going to do it. But just in terms of facilities and other kinds of things, Virginia State may be a target, maybe before you start looking at some of these other options.
Right. And being so close too. Again,
they're right in that footprint between Orangeburg, South Carolina now and Bowie State. That's the same footprint that the MEAC is in. And one of the things that Dr. Thomas talked about is that the MEAC is in the same footprint it was when it started in 1971. That same footprint is where they are right now. FAMU and Bethune-Cookman came later. So anybody in that area you would think would be a potential target. But I don't know if they want to raid the CIAA, so to speak, to try to take away some of those strongest programs.
We're running out of time, but I want to get you. I just love having you guys on. Real quick, I did get a text that said, "Is there any similarities, Luke, when Leon Carey left, McWilliams comes in as a parallel in terms of Dr. Thomas to Commissioner Steele?"
No, when Leon Carey left, he was allowed to resign rather than be fired.
Right.
I don't know anything that had Dr. Thomas about to be fired. Leon Carey, there was a whole lot of behind the scenes things going on with the CIAA related to their money, related to his salary, related to the the power that he was starting to exercise in the conference. That some of the presidents were looking kind of side-eyed that he was becoming too powerful. There were a lot of issues. I don't think there was any of that as it relates to Dr. Thomas.
This person texted me back, said, but he had vision. Again, you're closer to it and you know it better in terms of
who said who had vision.
He's saying Commissioner Carey did. Commissioner Carey. Leon Carey.
Well, I won't go into that tonight. But if we want to talk about that another time, I can tell you some things. But I'm not going to go into it tonight.
Okay, all right. I had to put he was like, ask Luke this, So I did. One of my frustrations, and this is the frustration. We've had this conversation.
You mean other than Mason Rudolph? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh God. You about to make me throw up now. Come on, Lou. Wait a minute. And now Mitch Trubisky. But anyway, one of the frustrations.
Yeah, I saw that. Okay, I'm sorry. Another show, another time. Okay.
Exactly. Is the fact that the seating, and I've had Coach Jones on in Norfolk State, and even after the game, he said, "Listen, this is we got great teams in this, and we won. It'll be a shame if we're not higher seed, maybe 12, 11 like that." And of course, they put them at 16. Howard women are playing a team. Not only I can't even pronounce it, remember their name.
Incarnate Word.
Incarnate Word. Yeah.
Incarnate Word.
Mm-hmm.
But
I believe he was a second baseman. I believe he was a second baseman for the Yankees back in the day, if I remember.
Something. 13 wins. They're playing them, and then Texas Southern is in the playing game. And this is listen. The NCAA to me is irrelevant. They're irrelevant when you look at Alabama saying we're gonna do it this way. The SEC has their network, like you said, and all these TV things. When is it going to be time? Again, same question for these presidents to just let's have our own national Super Bowl and tournament. If you want to split it in D1, D2, and NAIA, you can do that. But they don't respect it. Norfolk State has had a great year. Jackson State women went undefeated, and they got a lower seed. So
they got a 14. They got a 14.
Got a 14.
You got a 14, right. But okay, you undefeated, and you beat everybody by 30 in the tournament.
Right.
I think you should even be higher than that. Norfolk State, again, back in the dance. They always look at all these other schools. Hell, Yale got a higher seed than freaking Norfolk State. So, I mean, come on, man. I mean, it's the same old conversation and debate we've had, but when is it going to change? When are these HBCUs going to come together?
You can forget it, LA. I think I've told you this before on other shows. That's not happening. Deion Sanders said at the first game of the football season, the Orange Blossom Classic down in Miami, he said, "Why don't the MEAC just fold and let's do this thing like the SEC? In other words, create a super conference." He said that. And Lord, you should have seen all the people saying, "Oh, why would he say that? Why would he think we're going to fold? Is he disrespecting the MEAC and whatnot?" Dion, people have been saying this. I've been publishing my sports page for 28 years. People have been saying that every year for 28 years. They've been saying, why don't these HBCUs come together? Why are they, with the NCAA and so forth and so on? They could market themselves. They could create all kinds of synergy around their own history. And if they start
especially
to
in this
recruit,
climate, especially
yeah,
in this climate.
yeah, I tell people over and over again, it's a pipe dream. It's not going to happen, okay? Because you put so many people out of work who are already working in those two conference offices. And I'm saying people have come up and listen. All I'm saying is Dion said it. First game of the season, Dion said it. Why don't the MEAC fold and let's join the SWAC and do this thing like the SEC? I wrote a story about it. He made that statement on the same weekend historically that Sam Cunningham integrated the SEC when Southern Cal beat the hell out of Alabama.
That's right.
And Sam Cunningham died that same week. I wrote a story called Dion, Sam Bam, and the SEC or something like that, where I talked about that whole thing. I wrote it for HBCU Game Day. So the guys that are like you, LA, that talk about that, I dap you for your courage and your boldness, but you're a lot more bolder than these folks who are company men, and even though with this whole thing with this Ross case, maybe some of that will start to change. Maybe some of that will people start to think when they watch what Dion did this year and just his first full year really coaching and how he turned things around. I was at 2 of those games at Mississippi Veterans Memorial Stadium, and it was unbelievable. I mean, the crowds were unbelievable. 50,000+, 3 different games. Unheard of.
Wow. I guess, yeah. I mean, Tony, we talk about this all the time, and it comes down not just what Lute said in terms of people losing their jobs, and maybe you can look at some other things, but also the egos of these presidents and these people involved. Like they think they, don't stink, like Lute said when Dion said that. To be accurate, I said something about the CIAA, wrote something about the CIAA years ago. Where the people in the stands? They out partying, the day partying. Where they in the stands? Winston-Salem State and all these schools went off on me. How dare you? I'm just pointing out where the people in the stands. And so
Right.
it's this sense of arrogance.
Let me say this. When I did this retrospective on the CIAA tournament, I started going to the CIAA tournament in 1963, 64. And I wrote about Charles Oakley and Ralph Talley and Earl Monroe and Bob Dandridge and Cleo Hill. And I was like, when has there been somebody like that in the CIAA in the last 15 years?
Right.
Somebody whose name, these are pro basketball Hall of Famers, NBA veterans, Ben Wallace and others, and the reality is part of the matter is that you got to do what Dion is doing.
Right.
For anybody to think that. And see, one of the things that happened when they chose to go with Sonia Stills, and may God bless her and her be successful, it was guaranteed that you're going to have more of the same of what you've already had. If they were going to think the way that you're talking about, LA, they would have had to choose somebody that was not a traditionalist in terms of having gone through that process. Somebody who would be willing to take a chance to go out on the limb and do the kinds of things that you're talking about. I think it could still happen, but it's going to take a different set of people. McClellan might be in for that, but I'm not sure that Sonia Stills and the MEAC folks are.
Right. And it's a lot of times, Tony, we say those people got to die off, if you will, before change actually the kind of change. And loser, I mean, he's realist.
I'm not sure if we should be advocating death, but I get, I get what you're saying. I mean, this way, I think fortunately or unfortunately, the one thing that they've been saying over the years is if it don't make dollars, it doesn't make sense. And in their eyes, that's always going to be the first rule. And then when they talk about the second rule, they'll say, refer to rule 1. Wow. And they've got to, the thing is, they've got to go beyond that. And I think, unfortunately, they'll probably be led kicking and scratching into doing it, because what's kind of funny to me, and I know you've seen it, Lute, is sort of the other side of Dion and Hugh and Eddie and all that, because you've got a lot of quote unquote, dare I say it, traditionalists. They've got a real hard time dealing with them. And a lot of it has to do with the quote unquote, they're not true HBCU folk. And look, I get that, but see, and look, it is a slippery slope, because I have more of a problem with the Art Bileses of the world than I do with, say, the Dion's or what have you, because I think end of the day, he may not know the culture as much as, say, yourself or other folks who've been involved in it. But like you said, he is saying a lot of stuff that you, me, our late great buddy Bill Franklin, and so many other folks have been screaming at the top of their lungs for years. And all of a sudden he says it, and everybody is like, how dare he?
Yeah.
And I don't get it.
And Lou, Tony's right, because when I wrote that article, the first thing I got and the feeling I got is you're not one of us.
Yeah.
And so that's you're not an HBCU grad.
And look, let's be clear about something. Jackson State has a tremendous football tradition. Walter Payton, Robert Brazile, Jackie Slater, Lem Barney, Willie Richardson. You go down the list. The Jackson State folks were not feeling Dion for quite some time. Okay, I talked to some of the old heads from Jackson State. Bringing in Brittany Renner to talk to the team. Hello, okay. Some of the things he was saying, they were like very skeptical. But I said this from the beginning, that Dion can say anything he wants to say, but if he doesn't win, he'll be out of there as quick as possible. The winning was like, oh, okay, wait a minute. And let me tell you what I found out about Dion, because I thought Dion was, maybe 75% hype, but I think that he's proven this year that he's more substance than hype. In terms of what he's done, how he's done it, his I Believe logo and all this other kind of stuff. Now, that could have all blown up if he had taken one of those Power 5 jobs that were supposedly offered to him. Because he said God sent him to Jackson State. He's made it a religious and a spiritual thing that he's come to Jackson State. If he had left for one of them multi-million-dollar jobs from somewhere else, I would have put him back in the hype category. So I want to see how long he stays. That's the big question for me. He says he turned down Power 5 jobs. I don't know if y'all know, and I'm sure y'all have seen that Dion, when he went through that surgery, man, lost 2 toes.
2 toes, yeah.
He had 2 toes amputated. When we went down to the championship in December, one of the guys in the media, Dion showed him his leg. He said his leg was completely black with the toes missing. Nobody knew about the toes being amputated, but he only missed 2 weeks off the field with 2 toes amputated. He came back and supported his son in that game with Southern in a wheelchair. Now, who does that? Yeah. So I said to myself, I've become a Deion Sanders fan. I was not a fan of Mr. Primetime and gold chains and everything else, but he's proven this year. I felt that he has become a guy of substance more than hype, and I have a lot more respect for him than I had before.
And I think too, if he stays longer than after his kids graduate, then that's definitely real solid too. I mean,
exactly.
People are looking at it like, oh, he's only there because his kids are there. No, if he stays longer than that, you look at it and he's in it to win it. And I mean, I love Florida State. They were talking about him coming there, but I'd rather him be at Jackson State than to be at Florida State. Final question for you, Lou, and let you go. Is how serious is the NFL in when they do the what do you call it? The trials.
The combine.
The HBCU
combine.
Yeah, some are official, some are unofficial that they've had, and I've had some people, I won't say names, are saying the NFL is really serious about it. Well, I don't know. Well, I'm the book is still out. What do you think, Lou?
Well, I mean, HBCUs are hot right now. When you start talking about the NBA All-Star Game, celebrity game benefiting HBCUs, and Chris Paul doing stuff for it. This is HBCUs, and Dion is a big part of that. Are really hot right now. So they got a HBCU All-Star Game at the Final Four this year. There's an HBCU basketball final, or the best players in HBCU basketball are going to be playing on the Sunday between the Final Four and the championship game, or on CBS, no less. Grant Hill has produced a documentary about John McClendon. Chris Paul produced one on Earl the Pearl and Winston-Salem State winning their championships. So right now, to me, it's all just window dressing. I don't think that's going to particularly lead. They talked about coming out that combine. They talked about maybe a couple of guys. I think an offensive lineman from FAM and a couple other guys that got a look. I don't think that's going to make anybody draft them. That's not going to change that. They're not going to get drafted unless they look. The kids that went to the combine performed well. Marquise Bell performed well. Jacoby Bryant performed well. The kid from Fayetteville State, Joshua Williams, performed well. And the lineman from Southern performed well. So there'll probably be somebody there. But no, I don't think that right now. It's just that HBCUs are hot right now. And anything with HBCU on it, you might see HBCUs anywhere. Final Four, NBA Finals, Super Bowl. Everything is, they're hot right now. So how long that lasts and whether that becomes something tangible, we have to wait and see.
Black Collar Sports Page. I saw the articles, and folks, you can see. I know there's one on Marcus Johnson departing from St. Aug. Had him on the show not too long ago, Lute. So we kind of knew some writing was on the wall there. But tell people about your sports page and where they can read it.
Thanks so much, LA. Yeah, my page comes every Tuesday. And listen, it goes to newspapers around the country, black newspapers around the country. All of them are weeklies right now. It goes up on Anadan, but my webmaster, Eric Moore, I want to wish him, and I want you all to wish him a speedy recovery. He suffered a stroke. Yeah, right. He's been struggling over the last 4 or 5 months. I just talked to him this past week. He's still trying to recuperate. So my page usually goes up on anadan.com, but because of not only his health, but the health of some other family members that also would put the page up, has not been up as often. What I'm doing now, in addition to my sports page, is going to those newspapers. I'm also a contributing writer for HBCU Game Day. So I was at the tournament, really covering the MEAC tournament for them. Like I said, I didn't make the CIAA, but I'm writing features and whatnot for them as often as I can. But thanks for that opportunity, and it's always good to be with you, LA.
Yeah, and Eric Moore has been at it for a long time, as we know, and prayers go out to him and his struggles, and certainly you've been doing it for 3 decades or so, and I appreciate you, and it was good seeing you in Norfolk, and let's make this regular again, man. I love you. You be careful, you and your family.
Thank you, brother. Same to you, Tony.
Yes, sir.
Peace to you, brother.
You too. Hope to see you around soon again, man.
I look forward to it.
Okay, man.
Right. Thanks, Luke. Luke Williams, the publisher, editor and publisher of the Black Collar Sports.
When I grow up, I want to be just like Luke.
Exactly right. he is definitely. He's got the ear of a lot of stuff that's going on right now. Tony, I want to wind up with baseball. First of all, we hadn't talked since they're back, right? If you will.
Really? What? Who's back? Who's back?
Listen, applaud the Mets and what they're doing. The rotation looks really good. That starting rotation. DeGrom, you're gonna have to work with. He already said no negotiations. I'm gonna opt out. We renegotiate. He don't want to be a distraction, but saying it is a distraction. But anyway,
a
little bit. Look,
it's
the fact that he said it. Now they're looking at is he gonna be 15-1 with an ERA of 2.5 or something?
You know what? I think he's actually doing the right thing. He's just gonna go out and perform, right. and then they're gonna have to come to him. But
if he does, look, if he performs and he's 8-10 with a 5 ERA, he probably should have took that money.
Well, but see, you know what? He's betting on himself, and why not? And see, here's the crazy thing, and I want to publicly thank the Oakland A's for allowing us to get him for basically a year's supply of cream of wheat for the most part. Basically now Carrasco and Taiwan Walker have been put on notice that one of y'all, we still believe in y'all, but we're gonna push you. And I still am a little leery about the bullpen, although your boy Ottavino will definitely. I'll take Ottavino over Jerry's Familia at this point in time right now, and you know, God God has a great sense of humor, because the fact that he's going to the Phillies is kind of. When I heard it to the Phillies, I couldn't stop laughing. I really couldn't.
Two things. First, the Yankees. I told you when you text me that they were getting Donaldson and sending Sanchez. I always like Sanchez. I know he doesn't hit. I believe in defense and pitching, so I didn't like it. Donaldson's got he's a little long in the tooth, and I just don't.
Kind of Khalifa. Now he basically became expendable once Texas signs Seager.
Right.
He's probably the linchpin of this trade, because like you said, Donaldson. If this was Donaldson, say 4 or 5 years ago, I could say, oh, okay, that makes sense. But there's also some DH possibility. The thing I'm surprised is they gave up on Urshela. I thought Urshela was going to be your third baseman for the next 5 to 10 years. And he had just really started to become a better hitter. But my only my only guess is that they've got something else working. See, this is a different time now, because pretty much I've been basically watching MLB Tonight nonstop since the agreement came in, and literally every 2 to 3 hours somebody another thing happens. Nelson Cruz got picked up by the Nats.
That's a nice little move. I know
that's a hell of a move for them.
That's a great move for them.
Now, and see, here's where the universal DH coming in.
Right.
This is a game changer. Now, unfortunately, what I've also heard now is that they're stepping back a little bit on the extra inning games, where now they may be using that extra runner for extra innings under the guise of player safety. And I'm like, that's not player safety. It's not. I mean, look, I get it that at least that's what they're trying to, stay with the program. Thank God we're going to have 9-inning double headers again and what have you. Now, the only thing that can mess this up is April weather, and we all know how lovely April can be in the East and other places. So it's a bit of a gamble doing the but they're dead set on doing the 162. I'm very glad of the extra playoff thing. I think that will generate some things, but
they're pushing that the 162. It's going to be freezing cold late in the year.
And see, here's the funny thing. Remember, the original schedule was supposed to start on March 31st.
Right.
So
they're way off.
They've already shaved off a week, basically, and you're still gonna,
we stopped saying Mr. October anyway. They said we're gonna be Mr. December at some point. The way they're going.
Look, I've always had this scenario where I was gonna wake up on Thanksgiving morning and say, happy Thanksgiving, welcome to Game 7 of the World Series.
Exactly.
So it's getting closer.
Maybe that's good for us. We have our turkey and we can see Game 7 of the World Series or whatever.
Yeah. Oh, hey, I'd watch that. I'd watch that over the Lions any day.
Oh God, the horrible Lions. Listen, so the other move that I mentioned or we talked about via text was first base with the Yankees, and they're looking at re-signing Rizzo. I want Freddie Freeman. I was very critical of him, but he showed me how great he can be. I know they said the Dodgers are heavy in play. Looks like Atlanta with the trade they made is like
I
they
was,
don't want him.
you know, I guess the fact that they basically didn't negotiate with him sort of let you know that they sort of made up their mind that they weren't bringing him back, and the fact that they were, and again, I guess the A's are bearing gifts now for again, and they were able to get. I guess they got. I think they got a 3-can supply of cream of wheat from the Braves to get Olsen, and apparently Olsen was on the Yankees radar as well.
Right.
Look, I don't think the Yankees sort of said that they weren't interested early on, so I don't think they'll go back on that. And to be quite honest, Rizzo isn't a terrible fallback. Personally, I take him over Voit because he's a better overall player. He's this way. Yes, he's a little bit up there. He's not like Donaldson old,
Right.
but he's got some tread on his tires. But I still think that, let's put it this way, this isn't Doug Bird here.
Right, and Voit is a
Big Bird. I'm sorry, I'm stating myself.
Voit is sort of a rich man's Steve Balboni or something. Like it's hit or miss with him. Like
well, he's one of those guys that the universal DH is going to help because
Right.
I think someone will pick him up. Now that I've said that, the Mets will probably sign him like a freaking idiot, but that's another story. But again, the Yankees keep going away from. Let's put it this way: I'll believe the Yankees are making moves when they bring in some starters. Now, they could have very easily brought back Sonny Gray, and see. Here's the thing that people keep.
Sonny went from Cincinnati to where?
Minnesota.
Minnesota.
Because Kenta Maeda apparently is going to miss a little part, and they've already lost. They've already lost a couple of guys. Matter of fact, your boy Pineda is Michael Pineda's out there, by the way. If you're if you're so inclined, but when the Yankees go after pitching, then I'll take them seriously. But right now, they're setting themselves up for.
Chicks love the long ball.
And chicks usually get taken out in the first round, like the Yankees have in the last couple of years. So
I will say though, if they get Carlos Correa, I don't care what you have to do. He's a premier shortstop. He's still out there. There's some really good talent, but to your point, and I text you that they have to fix this starting rotation. That's where they need to be. They're picking up all these. Donaldson is 160 years old, and I don't.
100, he's 159, but I didn't want to, mess
add to 1 year. But I just they need starting pitching, and they need some bullpen help too. They need pitching. Period. They do.
And see, I know they're not, they're not quote unquote competing with the Mets, so to speak. But look, I like the fact that the Mets, the biggest moves that they've made, bringing in Marte and these other folks have been great, but getting Bassett from the A's and of course getting the crazy man from DC, that just adds to it. And look, end of the day, you're still chasing Atlanta now. Respectfully, even with Freddie Freeman gone, they're still the team to beat in the East.
No, but Bassett was a steal.
13
and 5, whatever.
12-4 with the A's.
Right.
Could you? And that now again, the whole thing is you translate that to a team that scores a few more runs. He could be, he winds up being there. And see, here's the thing: he could be a number one starter for any other team beside the Mets. But when you've got DeGrom and Scherzer up top,
and Scherzer is gonna teach those guys because he's a great. Scherzer can win 18 games.
Well,
he can.
You know what? I'm just hoping that I'm just hoping that they didn't get him a year too late as opposed to a year too soon. I get it because he's a bulldog.
He is,
and he's going to get. But see, at some point, and I'm not trying to jinx it. At some point, everybody catches up to you now. Now, granted that he almost, I think the trade to LA literally rejuvenated him for the second half of the year. Matter of fact, I don't even think the Dodgers sniff the playoffs if they don't make that trade. But yeah, he's one of those guys where people are gonna follow his lead. Hell, even DeGrom could probably learn a few things for him. But the thing is, the thing that I'm appreciative of is it's a balanced starting staff, and I still would like to see a couple more bullpen guys. And again, I just hope that they take advantage of the DH. Me personally, I would let Dom play first base, and I would let Alonso be the DH. That's what I would do. But see, again, Dominic and McNeil and a few other folks are out there that may be chips to bring in other folks. So
and Alonso's okay, right? With the
he said so. For those he got into a horrific, a real bad accident over the weekend. We'll see, because look, this the next few weeks, you don't want to read in too much, but see, the real story is going to be off the field right now. Who signs who? I mean, think of all the players who are still out there who could be difference makers. Who's going to pick up Bryant? Who's going to pick up Correa? And there's still a lot of there still could be some trades and what have you. You got Nick Castellanos still out there as well. It's let's put it this way. It's baseball is getting the best of it in the sense of you're getting your hot stove league, your spring training, and oh, by the way, the season starts in
all crammed in.
Yeah. And it's I mean, look, it's and if things keep playing out the way they are, like I said, I haven't been watching it 24/7, but every little minute I get, I see if somebody got
signed. And speaking of, final question for you. I always like to follow the Dodgers, and you look at Urias and Buehler, and I don't know what happening with Kershaw and Bauer.
Yeah, they re-signed them. They signed the race for 1 year.
They signed them 1 year. When you look at them, are they the team to beat in the West, especially since Tatis is out for 3 months or whatever he's going to be?
Yeah. Well, he's taking his vacation early this year, I guess. Yeah, I guess you got to say that because they've won it. Now, I guess the bigger question is, how far off do the Giants drop off? Now, they got the kid Rondon, who basically replaces Kevin Gausman. But the thing is, Posey's gone, and they're probably not going to re-sign Bryant. Now, I think I can stick my neck out a little bit. I will be shocked if they win 107 games this year. If they will put it this way, if they win 107 games, I'll take back all the nasty things I said about Gabe Kapler.
You're talking about the Giants. You're talking about the
Giants. I still think it's going to be a 2-team race. I don't think that the only thing with the Giants is now they don't have the element of surprise. I think now people are going to be like, okay, we got to take them seriously and what have you. And I'm not even going to play into the even year, odd year, even year, odd year. By all rights, if you go by that logic, they fall off the face of the earth this year. But I don't think they fall off the face of the earth, but I don't see them winning 107 games again.
Who's got the best starting rotation in the West? But with your reporting cap, not your Met cap.
In the NL West?
In the West. I mean, I'm sorry. No, in the National League. I'm sorry.
National League?
Mm-hmm. I mean, Bauer and those guys. I mean, they're
Bauer is still under. He's going to be under administrative leave until May, so he's not a factor as of right now. Look, right now on paper it's the Mets,
right?
And that's not the Met fan in me. I mean, look, when you've got two Cy Youngs at the top, an all-star that you literally stole for 2 half chicken wings, and you got to figure either if you get the kind of seasons that you think you're going to get from Walker and Carrasco, it could be fun. It could be a lot. Put it this way, let's say you get 15 wins from all 5 of them. That you win the division if you do that.
Right. Yeah, and I agree. When I saw like when they got blasted out of Oakland, I said, "Oh man!" And then you got Carrasco and those guys, and then you have a veteran guy who's a bulldog who's going to teach you how to stay in games, even if he don't have his best stuff. He knows how to stay in games.
And you know what? As much as I sort of begrudgingly say this, I would rather this happen with Buck Showalter than with the previous manager, because I think he'll literally just get out of their way and let them do what they do.
Well, as long as he's not Captain Hook,
look, let
these guys pitch. That's what I'm saying.
I get the feeling that he will, because look, and again, this could be the Met fan in me speaking, but see, I think a lot has. Everybody remembers the one game playoff when he didn't go with your boy, in only the biggest game of the season, and you had Ubaldo Jimenez lose the game for you. Whether he wants to admit that in public or not, that's something he's gonna have to erase. For quite a while, as decent of a manager as he's been numbers wise, just in winning, people are going to remember that. I know I will.
And the final comment is that I know some other Met fans that are not as astute and sensible as you, that don't want any part of Buck Showalter because he's former Yankee and all that. I mean, you want to win, and I'm not a big Buck guy either, but if he lets these guys pitch, he wears his welcome out, at some point. But
well, in many ways, he's sort of the baseball version of Tibbs.
Right.
That first year is always usually pretty cool, but then afterwards, it's.
But Buck stays around a little longer before that happens.
Oh, yeah.
If you can get a World Series out of him in 4 years critical. Or something.
My biggest I have to admit, just in listening to his news conferences and talking like that, he's not the guy. I'm still squiddish, but he's not exactly the guy I thought he was. See, I always looked at him as sort of a real analytics guy, and he's not really. And that's actually a good thing,
right? Because he's not an analytics guy. He's a real old school baseball guy. But the problem is sometimes he's a poor
stubborn.
Man's
stubborn. He's stubborn.
Yeah, right. He's very stubborn. Like he reminds me of Lou Piniella a little bit when he was coaching and stuff. Not just in New York, but when he moved on, and that kind of angry is my way or the highway type thing, and
I remember when we talked about this when he actually got hired. It really reminded me of when Terry Collins got hired, in the sense of Terry had some skeletons in his closet, and he changed his ways when he got the job. And you could make the argument. I'm not saying he's the greatest manager in Mets history, but he carved a decent niche being there. And put it this way, if someone had told me the day he got hired that he would help them get to a World Series, I'd have said, you want a 2X or a 3X in the straitjacket that I'm going to put you on, because I would have never thought that. So I give him his due in that, and I'm gonna try my best to not overreact to some of his quirkiness. But again, just in the little bit of interacting or what have you, and seeing, he's not the guy I thought he was. And a lot of it could be just now, because of the lockout and with the way the year may play out, maybe maybe we don't get the full Buck experience, and I'm down for that as long as they win. I'm gonna do him like the Jackson State folks did.
Deion.
If he
There's a
wins,
way to see, and I
if
think
he
he's a
wins,
little more. I think he's a little more aggressive than Terry Collins. Terry is a little more passive, but
yeah.
certainly to your point of what he was doing. But I think that and on Thursday we should talk about who we think going to win the divisions, because I think
It's early. You know what?
it's like a cramp.
You know what? Put it this way: if there's every year, I'm going to be wishy-washy. It's this year because there's just no seriously because there's just so because there's think of all the players who are still out and even not so much even the big names, but think of all the other guys that could be difference makers as well. I mean, what are we? It's March 14th. Imagine how the rosters are going to look, say, April 14th between now and then.
Right. And so what we'll do is we'll look at it down the road on paper. Pitching is going to be. I mean, I don't see how anybody can choose a team that hits more rather than pitches more. But people do that. And
Well, a lot. What's funny is a lot of people are getting intoxicated by the Rangers, and again, I get it. Not now. Do you want to be the next Colorado Rockies, or do you want to be? Or you want to be the team that pushes Houston and the Angels?
Right. Well, they're looking more like the Colorado Rockies right now. So
Yeah.
that long ball and all that. Yeah, you playing games 8-5 every night. 8-7 and stuff. Yeah.
Well, we'll see. But you know what? But see again, the carrot that's out there for everybody is the extra wild card,
Mm-hmm.
and that's going to be the difference maker for a lot of teams, and that's going to it's going to have a say as to how they go after this year, because they're going to be just. I will say this, and I can't really pinpoint a team as of yet. There's going to be a team this year, and it happens every year, but I think you're going to get a group of teams this year that are going to literally come from out of nowhere, and they're going to go for it for this year.
Right. I agree, and I mean, there's a lot of models out there, not just in baseball, but in other sports, where teams just say, "We're just gonna mortgage it. We're just gonna go for it, and we'll worry about it down the road." So we'll see. Final question: UConn men and women. What are people saying there, and what are they looking at for the women being a 2 seed and UConn men being a 5 seed?
It's the same thing with a lot of folks. I think I think for Hurley's thing, he's got to get out of the first round.
Exactly.
He's got to get out of the first round, because at this point in time right now, for all the people who keep saying that there's such a whole different team under him than they did Kevin Ollie, I don't see it.
Nope.
I don't see it. Now, this year they did play better as a team, and I do think they'll get out of the first round, but I can't get a feel of really how far they're going to go, because to me there is no clear number one. That may be a saving grace for them. And also on the women's side, just the lower expectations could make, let's put it this way, wouldn't surprise me at all to see them get to the championship game this year, only because they are playing collectively. They're playing better now. They're healthy, and the expectations aren't as high. And I think that plays to their advantage, because look, South Carolina is still out there. Stanford is out there. We saw, the whole controversy with Baylor and/or Louisville, so you got to respect them.
NC State, yeah.
NC State as well. The team that look, if they're gonna have any possibility of getting to another Final Four,
they got to beat them.
Road goes through Raleigh.
And I was surprised too, T, that they were playing. They're still in the Bridgeport region. I was surprised by that. They sort of was a fourth of the 2 seeds, of the number 2 seeds.
Unfortunately, and I don't say this to disparage, because I have a lot more respect for the women's tournament than I do the men's in a lot of instances.
That's right.
The women still have to play those early round games where they could make a few bucks. There's a reason why they have LSU in Baton Rouge. There's a reason why they have UConn at Stores. There's a reason why NC State plays in Raleigh, what have you. they don't generate the same kind of money that the men's tournament does. Although you do get the feeling the longer this goes, that gap's going to get smaller and smaller. I think the fact that they've got the play-in games this year now, I think they probably should have done that a while ago,
Right.
because it opens it up for other schools. Although I'm like you, Howard and
Jackson State.
and Incarnate Word is like, again, but it's weird. But see, even with the women, I think the women give a little bit more credence to the HBCUs. I think that's why you had Jackson at a 14, although yes, they could have been higher. But again, look, they're never gonna. I'm just at the point now where we ain't gonna never like it.
Right.
We're gonna never like it unless put it this way. I'm going out and saying it on the men's side. Norfolk's gonna beat Baylor, and I'm gonna go out. No, I'll say it. I'll say it out loud. I mean, if color and color me fool if it doesn't happen. But that's what it's gonna take. They're putting on a documentary tonight on ESPN Plus about Coppin State's run a few years ago. But
Frank
see,
Mitchell, yeah.
at the end of the day, hit them where it hurts. Beat them on the field.
Right.
That's where that's how like Luke says. As much as we would love to see it, it's not going to happen, because unfortunately, even the little pennies that they get from the NCAA is probably going to generate a little bit more than if they do it in house. And I would love to see it happen. I really would. And it's ironic because one of our colleagues, Mike Coker, has basically done that for the baseball with the HBCU World Series coming up not too far from now, back in May. But I don't know if you're ever going to be able to do that for basketball. Now, football, I don't know. I think I think there's a better chance of that happening for football than for basketball, but it would have to be done. It would have to be done right. But it's tough. It's tough because at the end of the day, it's about bucks.
Right. And it's more than accentuating the positives about the HBCUs. Incidentally, Baylor's best players out. Not to say that they can't beat them full fledged. We've seen what Central done to Duke and NC State and everybody in the regular season game.
Behold the green and gold. That's all I'm gonna say. Behold the green and gold.
That's right. And to your point, it's almost like, okay, so they lost two regular season games in the conference and won their regular season and conference tournament. They 16. Jackson State went undefeated and they 14. So what do you got to do?
Don't stop trying to make sense of it, man. You'll lose more. You'll be down to skin and bones in your head trying to figure it out, man.
Banging my head.
You see, I've already given up. So so it's but no, I hate saying this, but it is what it is, man. It is what it is. Yeah. I wish I could say something better than that, but unfortunately, that's where we're at now.
Well, aside from your Mets, sir, tell everybody about Black Athlete Sports Network, where they can find and where they can follow you, sir.
All right, we're www.basnnewsroom.com. We are also on Facebook at Still Soul of Sports, and for some crazy reason, we're also on Instagram. We're BASN_newsroom, and I got to be honest, we don't put a lot of stuff on Instagram. But I try.
Well, listen, and folks that have never caught Tony, which is rare because he's on quite a bit with us, and we appreciate his that one of my mentors in terms of writing, and he does a phenomenal job folks. So do check out the website and follow them on Facebook and Instagram. And he, like I said, he'll try to put something up there every now and then to make it look good. T, I appreciate you, man. I'll talk with you soon.
All right, take care.
Thank you, man. Tony T. McLean from the Black Athlete Sports Newsroom, BASN.com. If you miss any part of our broadcast, you can go to our website, thebatchelornews.airtime.pro, and you can listen to the audio version of the show. You also can catch the rebroadcast, the video broadcast, of course, at Roku and IBM TV. So if you download IBM TV on Roku, you can see the show there. If you download Big Mind, MIND, Entertainment, you can watch it on Fire Stick if you have an Amazon Fire Stick. And, of course, on LA Batchelor on YouTube, LA Batchelor, BATCHELOR on YouTube. And we're live, of course, on Facebook at Pad Nation 2 at Twitter, Instagram, and other sites that you can catch a podcast. We thank you for joining us as always. We appreciate you, and we will talk with you soon. Don't forget, in the evenings, 7 to midnight now, whisper softly, lots of love songs at our website, thebatchelornews.airtime.pro.